Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We finished our morning session very late, so we're ready to get back at it. We have a 1:30 agenda, and don't know if there's anyone here for 2:30, but we'll try to catch up as much best as we can. So before we get started, please turn off your cell phones, use the etiquette feature, and please be advised that today's hearing is being live streamed on YouTube as part of an ongoing pilot project. This meeting is held in accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act as amended, and I'll now call this meeting of the Committee Adjustments for City of Toronto to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for minor variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to create new lots. To ensure a fair and timely hearing, I'll vet the agenda to determine which applications of the 1:30 agenda can be dealt with immediately and which applications require a more in-depth review. So I'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda, both by its municipal address and its number on the agenda. And I'll first ask if the agent or applicant is here. Just put up your hand, let me know that you're here. And then I'll ask if there's anyone in interest, concerned neighbors in attendance, and if so, the matter will be held until other non-contested applications have been cleared from the agenda. If your item is held, we strongly advise to meet outside the room with the interested parties in an effort to either understand the application better or resolve concerns. So if no person is present in interest, the agent or applicant will come to the podium when we call the application, proceed with their application if required. If it's very straightforward and we don't have a lot of comments from city staff and area residents, we may just ask committee members if they feel they need a presentation, and if not, we'll just proceed right in to see if committee members have questions for the applicant and or take it into committee for a decision. When you make your submissions, each speaker, including the applicant or agent, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. When you address the committee, please come forward. First of all, hand in your white decision request card to the city staff sitting on my right. Then go to the podium, clearly state your name and address for the record. And if you have a written submission that you're reading from, please hand in a copy to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you're done. The applicant or agent will have 5 minutes to present the merits of their application. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be allowed to express their views. If there are several speakers sharing the same views on a particular application, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views, however, covering the same points over and over again will not advance your cause. Of course, if the spokesperson you have issues that aren't the same as the spokesperson, you'll certainly be allowed to come forward and express your views, but we just ask that, especially when you have 8 people sitting, that we not hear from all eight parties if they have the same concerns. When all speakers are finished, the applicant is then given an opportunity to rebut only the related issues that have been raised by the neighbors. The matter is then taken to committee for a decision, and that will end the end of all discussion unless you're asked a question by one of the members. Please also remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We deal with planning issues. We don't deal with construction or drainage or personal issues between neighbors. If you don't agree with the committee's decision today, you may file an appeal. Almost all appeals are now dealt with the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or TLAB, and for more information about TLAB, please visit their website or the Committee of Adjustment website. Appeal instructions will be included at the bottom of every decision. The white decision cards I mentioned earlier, in order to receive a copy of the committee's decision and to be informed of appeal proceedings, you must fill out one of those cards, and please include your email address, as TLAB will be sending notification and appeal updates by email. And decisions are mailed within 3 business days. So, anyone have any declarations of interest on the 1:30 agenda to declare?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is anyone here wish to withdraw their application? Okay, so I'll now vet the 1:30 agenda. First item, 136 Wells Street. The applicant or agent here. Thank you. Any neighbors present on 136 Wells? Yes? Okay, that matter will be held. You want to put up your hand again, and you want to just look behind you? The ladies there. Perhaps you want to meet outside and have a discussion. Item number 22, 8 Springhurst Avenue. Applicant or agent. Thank you. Any neighbors present on 8 Springhurst with concerns? Yes? Okay, thank you. That matter will be held. Item number 23, 25 Belmont Street. Applicant, agent, thank you. Any neighbors here? Sorry? Okay, we'll deal with it when it comes up. Anyone here on 25 Belmont with concerns? Okay. So perhaps you should have a discussion outside with the neighbors. And you can let the neighbors know that you're asking for a deferral and get their position on that. Item number 24, 64 HILLHOLM Road. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 64 HILLHOLM? No, it won't be held. Item 25, 80 GEARY Avenue. Okay, applicant. Any neighbors present on 80 GEARY? No. 22 Browning Avenue. Applicant, agent. Any neighbors here on Browning? No. 481 Russell Hill Road. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 481 Russell Hill Road with concerns or opposition? No. Number 28, 250 Woodfield at Road. Thank you. Behind the pillar. Any neighbors here on 250 Woodfield? Okay. 46 West LYNN, item number 29. Applicant. Any neighbors here on West LYNN? Okay, that matter will be held. I don't know if you want to go meet outside the room and have a discussion. And the last item on the 1:30 agenda, item 30, 41 Summerhill Gardens. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sprague. Anybody here on the 41 Summerhill? Okay, that matter will be held. Perhaps you want to have a meeting outside the room. Otherwise, you have to stay here and watch our boring proceedings. Okay, so just to recap, the items being held are 21, 136 Wells, 8 Springhurst, 25 Belmont, and 46 West LYNN.
41 Summerhill.
Oh, right, and 46 Summerhill. Okay, so let's start off with item number 24, 64 HILLHOLM. This is an application to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling with an integral garage. And in the morning. Gotta get a control sheet out.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay. Ms. Costello, if you can just bear with me for a second, I'm trying to find my
Thank you, sir.
control sheet. Too much paper. Here we go. Okay. 24 HILLHOLM, just let's see what we've got on this. All we have on this application is correspondence from the agent, including a corrected site plan showing the location and change to the cabana. We have no other communication from neighbors or from city staff on this application.
That's correct. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Eileen Costello, Costello, from Aird Burles LLP. I'm here with my client, Jana Krieger, who's in the audience, as well as Mr. Richard Wengel, who's the project architect. Mr. Chairman, as the committee will know from its review, this is an application for a new detached home. It is seeking variances under the new comprehensive zoning bylaw. There are no variances under the old bylaw. Those variances are to building length, the side yard, the rear yard, and FSI. Importantly, there's no variances with respect to height, to landscaping, or to building depth in this proposal. The site plan is up in front of you. I'm happy to take the committee through it and identify the variances if you wish. I'd simply note that prior to filing the application, we did have a pre-consultation with city planning. One of the changes that they asked was to ensure the west side yard was fully compliant with the bylaw, and so that change was made before we even filed. The side yard setback to the east, which is a setback of 0.95, is an existing condition. So although that's here as a variance, that's an existing condition. The building length variance is a mere 0.68 of a meter beyond what is permitted. And the rear yard setback, I simply point this out because it's an unusual lot. We're here on the triangular portion of HILLHOLM, and so we have an oddly shaped lot. And as a result, you'll see on the side, on the site plan in front of you, there's a dashed blue line which traverses where the proposed pool is. That is the actual rear yard because it's taken from the diagonal rear yard lot line. So we have this awkward pinch point where we're a 5.63 meters back. That's the variance, but that's the very pinch point, if I can point it out to you. My trusty assistant's going to point it out to you, right at the pinch point and the top of the site plan. So that's the only, that's where the deficiency arises. There's no variance with respect to landscaping, and as you can see, it's a very generous rear yard which exists. There's no neighbors who are here in opposition.
That line there, that's the extent of what's considered the rear.
That's correct. It's because it's taken from the lot line, and the way the new zoning bylaw works is the rear yard setback is 25% of the lot depth or 7.50, whichever is greater. So in this circumstance, it's an 8.82 required rear yard setback. It's a little unusual. It's one of the quirks of the new zoning bylaw. I noted, as did you, Mr. Chairman, that there are no letters of opposition. Our client worked very diligently in communicating with its neighbors. And we did have conversations with the neighbor immediately to the west and reached a resolution with that neighbor. And the reason you have a package in front of you is because that settlement is dependent on us making some changes to the front elevation. And if you go to the second last page of the package, you will see the revised front elevation. I can confirm for the committee there are no changes to any of the variances which are before you. This was purely an aesthetic change which our client was willing to do in order to reach a resolution with her neighbor, which I'm just going to say on the record I thought was incredibly generous of my client. The resolution which was reached was that we would file this front elevation with the committee along with the site plan, which has also been filed as part of this package, and would ask that if the committee is going to impose a condition, it do so that it be substantially in accordance with this front elevation and the site plan. And that was in order to reach a resolution with the neighbor, and we committed to making that submission to you this afternoon. Again, no changes to any of the variances that are before the committee.
Can you clarify what the changes are to the elevation? They're remarkably similar except for what looks like a protrusion at the back.
So I'm happy to have Mr. Wengel answer in detailed fashion, but in summary, there was a change to the placement of the windows and to the style of the windows, and there was a change to the location and height of the dormers. It was very much aesthetic, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Nipfel, very aesthetic, and as a result, there's no changes to the variances.
So is the last page, is that reflective of the old or the new?
That's a rendering of the intent, and it was simply here for the committee's viewing pleasure.
Just want us to tie it to the site plan and the front elevation.
Please,
Front elevation.
please.
Okay.
The last,
Took issue with Mr. Wengel's design?
pardon me?
The neighbor took issue with Mr. Wengel's design?
I think the neighbor had a different view of what would be pleasing to the eye. The last variance, in the event that the committee wanted me to speak to it, was the FSI. You know, numerically, it does look like a high variance. What we've done is provide you with a sample of the FSI variances that have been achieved in the neighborhood. And I'd simply note, as I did at the outset, when you look at the lotting pattern here, this is very much a function of the fact that the lots triangulate and get quite shorter. And, you know, indicative of that is that the neighbor immediately next door had an FSI variance of 95. And you can see that in the truncated lot.
Just for the record, this is to appease the neighbor on which side or what?
On the west side,
Okay. Okay, any further questions for Ms.
number
Costello?
62. Number 62 HILLHOLM, for the record.
West. You said the west side, did you?
It is east side, I apologize. I'm looking at it this way, and my plan is this way. I apologize. This neighbor right there at number 62 HILLHOLM.
While the other one on the other side has a really small lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's in part, it's not because of this street, which is regular on the grid, but the street one down, which then curves, right?
Old Forest Hill.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions for Ms. Costello, or are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions. I don't know if my colleagues do. I'd like to bring forward a motion of approval for the application without condition. Well, subject to the project being developed in accordance, or substantially in accordance with the front elevation and the site plan that were filed with us today. I frankly don't know why those changes were deemed to be important or necessary, but either of the elevation designs would have been satisfactory to me. But that's my motion.
Okay, I guess. Second for that motion? All in favor? You have your approval unanimously.
My thanks to the committee. Have a good afternoon.
Happy neighbors make good neighbors.
That's the intent. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Next application is item number 2580 Geary Avenue. This is an application to permit personal care use, a tattoo shop, including inside an existing three-story building. The only variance is that a personal service shop is not permitted within a residential zone. Geary, I know, is not exactly a residential street, but in any event. And what we have on this application is 6 photographs, before and after renovations, covering letter from the applicant. We have email correspondence from Hydro One and a staff report from Community Planning, and 12 form letters in support signed by area residents. Okay, good afternoon. Oh, and we have something new? Okay. Something that just arrived here. Deputy Mayor Ballot, copied on this email, wishes to convey her support for the minor variance being sought by Jason Decatur for the purpose of operating a personal service shop at 80 Geary. They acknowledge multiple area residents have written into the committee in support of the application, and as of today, there are no objections. That's right, and we'll go on to say they want it for a period of 4 years instead of 3, because I guess to prevent the application from having to submit a new committee of adjustment in the event the comprehensive study of the Geary Avenue corridor is delayed due to any unforeseen circumstances. Okay.
Good afternoon,
Good
committee
afternoon.
members. We've been around for a long time in Toronto. Actually, 2019 is our 25th anniversary of being a business in Toronto.
What's your name for the
Sorry, Jason Decatur. I'm the owner of Passage Tattoo.
right?
So 25 years is a...
Sir,
Yes.
I don't think we need presentation.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. Even better.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You've got support letters from a number of people, but unless I've missed it, you don't have a support letter from the adjacent neighbor at 76. Do you know why? Have they indicated?
Right next door,
Yes, 76?
I believe we do have those. If not,
Okay.
there might be some error because...
72 and 58 and
don't have-
56.
Just, when you've got letters of support and the adjacent owner is not one of them, it raises a question. So you believe they haven't got any objections, but we don't?
They personally came to me and handed me their letters themselves.
Okay, 'cause-
Yeah.
is it? I don't have it.
What's
72
the-
is next door?
What's next door?
76.
We have 72. It's also it's on the corner, correct?
Yes, it's on the corner.
Anyway,
So what number Geary is next door to you? What number?
Sir, I'm not sure exactly. I believe it is 76, but I'm not sure.
Gone?
But I know they did come by with their letters.
is this area of Geary residential? Because the part of Geary I know near DuPont, Dufferin, is sort of mixed bag restaurants, auto body uses.
It's an interesting street for sure. That northeast corner has been a commercial space since 1920.
Okay.
And I have the photos. I went back in the archive and found photos of it being a business since then and all the way through until now. So it's always been a business, but for some reason the zoning is...
And you're okay with the 4 years that the counselor is recommending?
Yeah, that's great. They're doing a zoning review, so I trust that by then it'll be sorted out. Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve the application subject to, for that this personal service shop or the tattoo parlor be permitted for a period of 4 years.
Second motion.
All in favor? You have your approval unanimously. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, committee members.
Okay. Item number 26 is 22 Browning Avenue. This is an application to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition with a ground floor deck, a third-story addition with a front dormer and a rear east side balcony and rear detached garage. And on this application, we have Urban Forestry requesting their variance number 2, or their condition number 2, correspondence from the agent summarizing the proposed revisions to the rear addition that does not affect the variances. We have staff report from community planning asking the wall height to be tied to the plans to be built substantially in accordance, and 2 form letters of support by 20 and 24 Browning. So both neighbors on either side. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is David Lang. I'm the agent for the application, 2100 Bloor Street West. Fortunately, the owners couldn't be here today. We're not aware of any other objections from neighbors in the community.
No letters of rejection, and you're okay to have the wall height tied to the plans as
That's fine.
planning is requesting, and Urban Forestry too. So let's see if committee members have any questions for you. I don't believe we need a fulsome presentation on this.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues have questions, I'd like to move approval of the application. It is mimicking the form and roof line of the attached semi, which I think is important. My condition, or my motion is conditional upon the planning condition relative to height and forestry condition number 2. I think with those particular conditions, the application clearly meets the test for variance approval.
Seconder for that? All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Next application is item number 27, 481 Russell Hill Road. This is an application to construct a new front yard parking space. We have on this application a covering letter from David Bronskill, solicitor. Previous decision of committee affecting the property, a package provided to the neighbors from the applicants. We have Urban Forest requesting condition number 2. We have transportation weighing in to advise that they're okay with this. And we have 14 form letters of support signed by various owners, occupants of Russell Hill, HILLHOLM, Dunvegan, and that's what we have. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. The last name is Bronskill, Bronskill, first initial D for David. We do have a package and full presentation for you, but I guess I'm in the hands of the committee, given the letters of support, the work with
Are
staff.
there any changes since we had the agenda printed?
No, sir.
No, I don't need that.
Don't need a presentation. Let's just see if anyone has any questions, and then we can take it into committee for a decision. Any questions for Mr. Bronskill?
Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to forestry condition number 2. I think it's a very straightforward application. Excuse me. As Mr. Bronskill indicated in his submission, there are other front yard parking examples on the street, so I think it fits into the context, and I think it clearly meets the 4 tests for variance.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Okay, so now for those of you, it's now 2:30. We were a little delayed this morning, so we just started the 1:30 agenda at 2 o'clock or thereabouts, so we're just catching up. We have a couple of held items, and then we'll get on to the 2:30 agenda. Unless you'd like me to vet the agenda now for the 2:30 so that people can go out of the room. Madam Secretary Treasurer? That's what we're doing now.
One more, we've got Woodfield.
Oh, we do?
Woodfield, we have one more.
Oh, my mistake. My mistake. Okay, 250 Woodfield. This is an application, item number 28, to alter the existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing rear first and second-story decks and by reconstructing the rear basement stair enclosure. And on this application, we have absolutely nothing, just the materials filed. No communication from city departments or area neighbors.
Right. My name is Mike Chipola, and I'm the agent for the property and the application, 250 Woodfield Road.
Okay, it's a very simple application. I don't believe committee members will need a presentation on this. So let's just see if they have any questions for you. two minor, very minor variances relating to the deck and the south side stairs.
Subject to anybody having any questions, I move that the application be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Granitstein. Okay, all in favor? Gav, you're approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's now 2:30, so before we do, we have a couple of contested items for the 1:30 agenda. We have the first three items that we called. So what I'll do now is vet the agenda for 2:30. There's only 10 items, I believe, and this way the ones that are contested, you can go out in the hall and have a meet if that's helpful, while you're waiting for us to deal with the other contested items on the 1:30 agenda and the uncontested items on the 2:30 agenda. So item number, just put up your hand when I'm going to call the application by municipal address and its number on the agenda. Put up your hand if you're the applicant or agent, let me know that you're here, and then I'll ask if there's residents with concerns who wish to address the committee. If there are, those items will be held to the end of the agenda. Okay, item number 31, 259 Crawford Street. Applicant agent, thank you. Any neighbors here on 259 Crawford? No. Item 32, 7 Peveril Hill South. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 7 Peveril Hill? Okay. Item 33, 37 Hatherley Road. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 37 Hatherley Road? Item 34, 288 St. Clair Avenue East. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 288 St. Clair? No. 35, 750 Brock Avenue. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 750 Brock Avenue? 36, 34 White Pine Avenue. Applicant or agent here on 34 White Pine. Okay, maybe they're in traffic. We'll hold. Any neighbors present on 34 White Pine? No. Item 37 is 166 HEWARD Avenue. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 166 HEWARD? And item 38, 437 Russell Hill. Applicant or agent here for 437 Russell Hill? So those, so far, we're batting 100 in terms of not having any opposition, but we have two applicants who aren't here yet. So we'll now do the 1:30 contested items. First one is item number 21, 136 Wells Hills. And the neighbors, please come and sit at the table over here, and the applicant, please come to the podium. Okay. 136 Wells Hills is an application to alter the existing three-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear third-floor terrace. There is one variance, that the terrace is 0.28 of a meter higher than the floor level of the floor of the story from which it gains access. And on this application, we have correspondence from the agent, including an aerial map, and a copy of the package provided to the neighbors. We have 5 form letters of support signed by area residents, including 130, 134, 140 Wells Hills, and 150, 168 Albany. Correspondence in opposition from 138 Wells Hills, which is right next door, and a 7-signature petition in opposition signed by area residents, including 138, signed that one as well, 999, 1001, 1005, and 1010, 11 Bathurst, and 181 Albany. Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Freese, architect, 186 DuPont Street, the agent for the
Now,
applicant.
this is just to create build terrace, and it's, the only variance is it's 0.28 of a meter higher than the floor
Correct.
in which it gains access.
Correct. We got the information from the neighbor yesterday, I believe it was, had a conversation or tried to have a conversation with his planner, and he and I exchanged voice messages, and I'd like to submit something that he responded to me.
Okay.
So what's in orange highlighted?
We can share if you don't have enough. You have a copy for the, okay.
I hope I have a copy myself. Anyway, what I asked him is if planning had any issue with the application, and he left me a voicemail last night, which is on the second page, saying that planning does not have any concerns with the variance because of the size of the deck and the location of the deck are not of issue. It is just the variance for the height of where it gains access from the house to the deck itself, which is slightly higher. He was concerned, based on reading the neighbors' comments, that perhaps they misunderstood that the variance was for the deck itself, but it's not. It's just the height of...
We're talking like 1 foot.
Yes, it's about 10 and a half inches. And so he then emailed back this morning. I summarized this and I was hoping to get it into you before the hearing, but it wasn't possible. He also wanted to indicate the very first that the intent of the bylaw was to provide or refrain from having roof terraces above top floors of the house containing multiple stairs to reach the access point. Single-family house, this is off of a master bathroom. It's a simple private deck that we're proposing.
Not oversized, it's...
No, it's the size of the existing flat roof of the back of the house.
Okay. So why don't we hear from the neighbors? I don't know if this is a matter of, misinterpretation or what they understood or what they didn't understand. So let's hear what their concerns are, and you'll have a chance to respond. And I assume you've given the neighbor a copy of
I just gave them the same thing.
email? Okay.
Actually, we were talking about the height, not the deck.
Well, anyway, you can talk at the podium, please. This is a...
There's extra, it's an update.
there's some additional names from the ones I read out.
Yes.
Okay, we, the neighbors, respective request committee, have refused the application to the building of the deck. But unfortunately, the variance is not for building the deck. The variance is for it being 1 foot higher than the level from which it gains access. So they can build a deck. That's their only problem. It's not building the deck, it's the 1 foot, 10 and a half inches that they have to go up.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, so can you give us your name and address and just tell us what your concerns are?
okay. My name is Anita Padilopoulos. Good afternoon. And I'm representing 138 Wells Street and our neighbors. We strongly oppose the construction of the backyard deck for the following reasons. We have lived there close to 55 years for the following reasons. First reason, we're worried about the impact of drainage, water spilling, and water runoff onto our property and shared space between houses. We're also concerned about the water drainage that is very high already in the front yard and walkway between the two homes due to our neighbor cutting her pipe in the front yard and water drains onto our property. The neighbor also slanted cement towards us in the backyard and front yard, so water is spilling from her property onto our property, spilling over the shared walkway between homes, resulting in frequent water accumulation and buildup of ice, winter, and water in spring, summer, and fall. The new deck would have the water running from our neighbor's deck and eaves trowel to our property, causing great hardship, cleaning the ice, buying more salt, stress, fear of falling on ice, mosquito breeding due to standing water. Adverse impact of additional snow accumulation, extra snow falling into our property, causing more cleanup and shoveling. This is an additional building maintenance for us, shoveling snow, cleaning the leaves, blowing off proposed deck. Second, next point, effects of the amount of sunlight, horizon, sky view to our property. The mass of the proposed deck will significantly and drastically reduce our morning sunshine as well as destroy our clear view of the sky space, greenery, street view, and horizon in the backyard to the east. Having the proposed deck threatens this clear view of sunlight to our porch, backyard, our kitchen, and garden. The zoning bylaw will not be maintained if the deck is built. Shadowing is the result of overbuilding. Next quality is the quality of life. Protecting the view of sunlight is so important to our surrounding property and space to protect the quality of life for our family. We enjoy family activities on the porch, such as talking, sewing, playing cards, planning, recipes, reading, and we used to listen to music, but our neighbor said that she didn't like our cultural music. One One of the family members is limited due to mobility and does not leave the home, so the porch in the front and especially the back porch is her major opportunity to venture outdoors. It is her sanctuary. It is our goal to preserve our home's outdoor space, not only for Catherine, but for the entire family's well-being, including the family member who suffers from seasonal affect disorder, and sunlight is a must. Next point, impacts of privacy. The proposed deck will overlook into our private open space yard and surrounding area and habitual rooms and windows. A high degree of discomfort and a sense of being exposed will cause us distress. Visual intrusion into our home and many windows of our home, bedroom, kitchen, and other private family areas, garden, backyard, and porch. Next point, noise and artificial light. Noise issues due to parties and get-togethers, especially in the evening and early morning. Artificial light disturbance at night from proposed deck. Issue from existing artificial light from our neighbor's garden and back porch and past parties already occur and will increase. Sleep disturbances from both. Next point, erodes the aesthetics of the neighborhood. The building of the deck is not compatible with Victorian architecture with respect to size, height, and spacing. The building of the deck will be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. The development is incompatible with the established building forms and character of neighborhood that erodes aesthetics of streetscape. It does not fit planning development vision. Next point, the variance does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The proposed deck is high so much as magnitude as to cause unacceptable adverse impact upon us to the point where the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is not maintained. We will be looking at the deck rather than the sky, sun, horizon, streetscape, scenic nature and surrounding area. Next point, the variance does not maintain the general intent of the purpose of the official plan. The proposals are not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood as outlined in the official plan. Neighborhood development, according to the official plan, is intended to respect the neighborhood character and the density within the given neighborhood. I've given you update of the neighbors who are strongly opposed to it. For these reasons, building of the deck does not respect and reinforce the character of the community, privacy issues affecting the quality of life of the neighbor. There's one neighbor that's right across from us who will be affected, who doesn't want it, and I've talked to other neighbors who have deck issues and privacy. And that's it.
Tell us, would you
Thank you.
maybe give a copy? I see you've read from your letter, so I guess we already have a copy.
I think I gave a copy on Monday, and you should you should have the long version.
Yeah, we have this in our record.
I
Okay,
missed
so
And this is a new updated one.
I missed your address. Are you 138?
130, we're right next door to the,
You are attached.
not a, we're
You're
not,
not attached.
just next door to
You're
them.
on the west side. Yeah.
North, south, yes, west of them.
So again,
Yes.
as we said at the outset, that I don't think the deck itself is a variance, it's the fact that it's a 10,
It's high, yes.
you know. I assume, could that not be assisted with screening? You know, do not other neighbors have decks in the back?
No. The ones that we have around here, it doesn't intrude as much as this one because this
How are
neighbor.
the other ones obtrusive? How is this one more obtrusive?
This is really intrusive because it'll be looking right into our yard, and there's a bedroom window up there which will be looking. It'll be looking into in the kitchen, so it will be looking down, and the screening will, if there is any screening, it's the living room too, and our dining room, the way it's
Thank you,
made.
Ms. Padalopoulos.
Yes.
Are you going to speak as well, or you're? No, it's okay. Okay, so let's have the agent, Ms. Philpott, come and respond to. Oh, sorry, Ms. Freese, right. That's the owner.
Just to clarify a few issues, we are the house in purple,
Okay.
and the two houses in orange have roof decks on the second floor. And they both opposed the application, which I thought was quite interesting because they both have roof decks.
Okay.
And they face onto the backyard.
And there's lots of green. I guess it's sort of like a key lot situation, so they're opposite, but it looks like it's a fair ways away.
It's quite a ways. So
There's a tree canopy.
So this
So,
photograph was taken this morning at around 9:20. That is from the roof deck. Looking to the back, you can see the shadow line that's there now, which is of the existing roof. The shadow is what it is. I mean, it's not going to change very much. We want privacy as well as for ourselves as for the neighbor. So we want to do, a railing that's 3'6" high, which is required by code. There is no intent to overlook It is a private space. It's not meant for parties.
If you're right, it's off, you said it's off the master ensuite.
Correct.
So the issue is, if it could have been brought down 10 inches, you wouldn't have to be here.
Exactly. It's because it's an existing condition, and we just want to utilize the existing roof, and structurally, I can't puncture through that from a waterproofing point of view.
Okay,
The deck isn't an existing condition, though, is it?
No, it's a flat roof right now, and so in order to build the deck, I have to put a new structure on top of it,
you're gonna have
correct?
screening, or we've received any,
Yeah, so, I mean, by code, I have to have a 3'6" railing,
yes,
and that was what we were proposing to do,
right.
trying to keep it low as to,
Sure that if you were here because you needed an approval to build a deck, we'd have a different argument. It's a
Correct.
big deck. Your understanding is that the bylaw permits the deck to be built.
Correct.
The only thing is the height.
yeah,
And
it's,
height is predicated on the fact that you can't puncture the existing membrane.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, any further questions for either the neighbor or Ms. Fries? Or are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, you already indicated it, but just to clarify for the neighbor, we don't have the decision before us of whether or not to allow a deck. That decision is already approved in the bylaw. The only thing that we're here to talk about is how high the deck might be above the floor of the house. And the proposal before us is that it be 0.28 meters higher than the
What is permitted?
yeah, and so, I don't want you to think that we're not listening. I heard everything you said, but almost nothing that's before us would impact on your concerns. Whether the height was 0.28 or 0, I don't think it impacts on almost all of the things that you mentioned. That's not, the issue here is not whether or not to allow a deck, but to whether to allow this lady to build a deck as she's proposing, which is slightly higher than the existing roof.
We don't have a discussion, so. Okay, is anyone ready to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a very straightforward application that's based on building science, and I have no problem in recommending approval of the application. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I think the deck is large, but the bylaw permits the deck. And so if all we're looking at is the elevation of the deck above the floor level, then I'm happy with it. I think it meets the 4 tests, and I recommend approval.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion.
Second.
All in favor? You have your approval.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, neighbors. Next application is item number 22, 8 Springhurst Avenue. And this is an application to construct a front yard parking pad with permeable pavers. There's one variance under each of the 2 bylaws. We have before us on this application, Urban Forestry Advisory Planning is recommending either refusal of the application, or if approved, that it be done with permeable pavers. Transportation is recommending refusal. And 24 form letters of support and 2 letters of non-opposition by number 6 and by number 10, both on either side. And then we have a letter from Councillor Gord Perks as follows, received today. This letter is regarding, do you have a copy of this letter, Mr. Dunn?
I don't.
Okay. You have a copy for him? This letter is regarding 8 Springhurst. Along with most properties in Toronto, East York Community Council, front yard parking permits are not permitted under 918-5 of the Municipal Code. Further, no appeals in that area are permitted. I will be appearing at committee to discuss how this undermines 918-5. Okay, the councillor's here. And the approval of this parking pad would be a direct contravention of the municipal bylaw. So in addition to everything I else read about all the community planning, transportation, the councillor is also against it. As pointed out, it's against the municipal code. So after you speak, Mr. Dome, we're going to hear from you.
Mr. Chair, there's people here in opposition. They should all be sitting.
Yeah,
in the front
anyone
row.
here in opposition should be coming and sitting in the front row of the horseshoe here on my left, your right. Any other people here in
Not opposed
opposition?
anymore?
I think they're neighbors in opposition. That's why we held it at 1:30. Were there any other neighbors here in opposition? There were when I vetted the agenda at 2 o'clock. Oh, you were here in support, I see. And so I see you're some of the 24 people who've signed a form letter. Yes. Okay, and I assume that's because you want to do the same thing. But in any event. Okay, anyway, so you're here in support. I don't know if we need to hear from you, but you're Mr. Dome, right? Okay. The councillor would like to speak, so perhaps if you'd like to give us a short presentation why this should be approved, then we will hear from the councillor as well as you've read the letters from planning, from transportation. So
actually, we would be requesting a deferral.
For what purpose?
Based on the urban forestry memo, stating that they would need more information regarding the tree that's on the property and a report from an arborist.
Yeah, but we already have transportation, community planning, and the councillor. We don't readily defer items because it creates more backlog in our already heavily backlogged system, and we'd have to have a more cogent reason. So we're here today. We expect to deal with this application today, and we need to hear from you briefly why this application should be approved in view of the overwhelming, at least not from neighbors, but overwhelming response from city departments and from the area councillor that this, first of all, offends the municipal code and is just not permitted. So I don't know if you want to say a few words, and then let's hear from the councillor.
So what we're essentially arguing for is that the owner of the property, they currently don't own a car, and they would like to start a growing family. And in order to do that, they would like to own an electric vehicle. And the only way they'd be able to do that is by adding a charging station, which is incorporated in the plans and emphasizing the green aspect of that.
Yeah, well, I guess is there street parking in the area? So they're saying, well, a regular car we can park on the street, but an electric vehicle, we have to plug it in somehow. But I don't think that is enough of a, they can either get a car that is not electric, which is not environmentally friendly, or they can move to a property which can allow them to accommodate an electrical charging station on their property. But to come and say, well, they want to buy an electric car is, I don't think, sufficient reason to go against everyone's opinion and the municipal code itself. So you have to have some other reason.
What I would like to just emphasize is that
Yes.
for this particular property, there's no parking directly in front of the house. So,
Okay.
So basically, it wouldn't be removing existing parking spots.
Okay. That's obviously a concern, but
But this is pretty straightforward. The front yard parking isn't permitted. Appeals to that are not permitted. So what incredible piece of information are we missing to approve this? The fact that you want a green vehicle, that's great, that's wonderful, but this is a pretty straightforward prohibition. Why would this committee recommend against this prohibition? There's no reason to recommend against the prohibition. The fact that they want a green car, the fact that they want to plug it in rather than use gasoline, that's admirable. But it doesn't go to the heart of the matter, which is front yard parking pads are not permitted in this area.
and even if they had some personal situation of disability or lack of mobility, we zone for the property, not for people. People come and go. They could sell the house in 5 years. They could in 10 years decide to buy a non-electric vehicle. This would remain in place for the next 50, 100 years. So we don't look at personal circumstances, even though, but in this case, just saying, well, they want to buy an electric vehicle, they don't even have a vehicle, that's not going to fly. It's just not permitted.
May I say something? It's not true, it's not permitted. The planning department says, although the proposed parking space is located in front of the property, entirely on private property, and therefore not regulated by Chapter 918, Transportation Services feel that the intent of the proposal is contrary to the spirit of the moratorium for the provision of front yard parking in Ward 14. Therefore, Transportation Services do not support the subject variation. So in other words, it's not prohibited. It's not in accordance with the spirit. But I think that your client's decision to buy an electric car and the need to have a plug-in in front is reasonable. And if it's not prohibited, then I would be in favor of it.
Okay. Anyway, you'd like to add anything else? We'll hear from the councillor, and you have a chance to respond.
Actually, I think that point certainly applies, and also like you mentioned that transportation originally, their original report,
Yes.
since we proceeded, it was actually, it didn't have any issues with it, and only very recently, it came up with a report saying that they were now recommending refusal based on what was mentioned about the spirit.
So you're saying that in this case, there's, my always argument against front pad is you lose the street spot because you have the curb cut, and you can, some streets you go in the city, you can't find a parking spot because everybody has a pad parking. They've said here it's not the prevailing, that's the transportation planning goes on to say it should be refused because it doesn't represent the prevailing character. They negatively impact the pedestrian safety and result in curb cuts which remove on-street parking. So you're saying, no, it doesn't remove a street parking spot by doing a curb cut here based on either how close it is to a hydrant or some other reason. So that's, they're weighing in as well. So let's hear from the councillor, and you'll have a chance to respond.
Just to clarify, in addition, notwithstanding what Mr. Grandstein said, which is correct, that the front yard parking pad doesn't maintain the spirit of the new regulation, the zoning bylaw, however, does prohibit parking in front of the building. So there is a prohibition. There's not only the prohibition in the bylaw, but there's the intent behind the recently approved regulation relative to front yard parking. So I think you've got two strikes against you. I wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, we do understand, we understand the contention, and what we're just saying is that there are many parking spots available to people on the streets, as far as being an existing condition. I know it's mentioned in the report that it's not currently in character with the streetscape over there. Depending on how you want to frame it, you know, they're looking at it as though the parking entirely on the private property is somehow out of character, but we actually have a number of examples of parking spots on that street and the surrounding streets.
Yeah, they mentioned that. And, you know, although we don't deal on precedent, right? The fact that there's, I've been doing this for 16 years, so the fact that there are people here not, you know, people don't come out and spend time of their busy day to support an application for no reason. So I think we can take quasi-judicial notice of the fact that, you know, this is obviously of interest. Obviously, everyone would like to have a parking spot in front of their house and increase their property value. They don't have to go out and they get stuck in a snowbank and have to move it. I don't know if you have alternate side parking, you have to start moving your car. It's obviously everyone would like to have it, but there are cogent reasons, which we've heard and we're going to hear from the councillor, why in this area it's just not permitted. So let's hear from the councillor, and you'll have a chance to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
To the podium, sir.
Oh, to the podium?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon.
Mr. Chair, members. Let me first begin by saying it is not my practice to appear in front of the
I was just going to say, I don't think I've ever seen you here.
That's right. It's my very strong view, and
Yes.
based on advice from the Integrity Commissioner, given that I, as a member of council, voted to appoint you, it's inappropriate for me to appear in front of you and give you my advice on how you should rule. The one exception that I make to that, and I have made it in the past, is when I believe that there is a larger public policy issue at play which rightfully belongs at the council and not a committee of adjustment. And in that instance, in this instance,
Thank you, Councillor.
So if there's a public right-of-way over the sidewalk to this parking pad, then this applicant has a right over that right-of-way.
So what will happen, and has happened, although not recently, is that if you grant it, they will then come to the right-of-way management people and say, the Committee of Adjustment has given us a parking pad. You can't lawfully prevent us from having access to it. You must give me a curb cut and allow me to pay from the curb cut to my parking pad.
Yeah.
And we will not be in a position to deny because you have already established that they have.
That's right. And they pay for it. They pay for the curb cut, they pay for the,
I'm not 100% certain about that, but
well,
effectively what has happened though is it's a two-step around an existing piece of council policy.
okay.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay.
Mr. Dome?
So I'd like to respond by saying that we certainly understand the concerns. As far as precedent goes, I mean, we're well aware that the Committee of Adjustment makes its decisions based on each individual case. And in this particular case, the owner does not have a place to park currently.
They could apply for street parking in the area. I don't know if there's any open spots or not, but I guess the problem is with an electric car, but we can't use the electric car excuse to circumvent this citywide policy, which I think is a very important policy for the reasons the councillor echoed, including hard surfaces. You indicate, because I really find as a pet peeve, when you go to park and you see just can't park because someone has gotten permission to, in addition to their mutual drive, have furred out a pad and had that paved, the curb cut made, and you can't park on the street. So you exchange one spot on the driveway, whether it's all on city property or partially on city property or on private, and then you can't park on the street. And
I definitely understand that concern, but in this particular case, there's no parking in front anyway.
you've heard the policy reasons for
Yeah,
this.
and also the concerns about water. Given the amount of parking spaces and driveways that are currently existing in the area, it's that may be permeable or not. That's unclear, but I know.
Well, I see you don't have a soft landscaping variance,
That's right.
but the arguments still hold, not for one individual, but when you multiply that thousands of times over, that's when you get to the issue of the fact that when we have sudden downpours, the system can, where previously, let's say, the grass or the soft landscaping can absorb the rainwater.
If the owner were to take every measure necessary.
And permeable, I think permeable pavers is a real red herring also. You don't get really much absorption the way they put permeable pavers very close to each other with sand. You get enough maybe to have some weeds growing out of there, but I don't think you get, especially on a heavy rainstorm, that water does not get absorbed the same way it would if it was a sodded or a garden. So anyway, let's see if there are any other questions for you or if we're ready for motion.
I think it's interesting to note that we don't have everybody on the street complaining about the fact that they're going to lose a parking spot, because that's what we usually get. And you have people in support of this, and they have parking pads on their property too?
No, they're coming here because they want to get parking pads.
Well, we don't know
How
that.
many of these
Oh, no, they currently,
people have parking pads already? You have them? And you? Yeah. Anyway,
I have a list of many.
anyway, we've heard about the moratorium. We heard about the fact that it's just not permitted under the municipal code. So I'm waiting for a motion. Someone ready to make a motion? We spent, a fair bit of time on this, so.
Chairman,
time to move on.
I'd like to bring forward a motion of non-approval. I think for the very points that the councillor so eloquently stated, this is a bad idea. Contrary to a municipal code requirement, it's contrary to the bylaw, and I recommend that we turn it down, and that's my motion.
Thank you. Seconder for the motion?
I'm going to second the motion. I agree with Mr. Nipfel's comments, and it does not meet, in my view, the spirit, the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw, so.
Thank you.
I think the turning it down flies in the face of the, I don't know whether it's provincial or federal encouragement of electric vehicles, and the government gives you grants for electric vehicle, et cetera, and now we're forcing this person to buy a fossil fuel eating vehicle. So I think the policies run contrary to each other, and I would be voting against the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 3-1. The application is refused. Thank you. Okay, so we have, I believe, one more application. Contested matter number 23 on the 1:30 agenda, and then we'll move to the 2 o'clock and 2:30 agenda, which is, we have two people that weren't here. We'll go through that when we finish. So the last item on the 1:30 agenda is item number 23, 25 Belmont.
It's not the last item. We got 29 and 30 too, don't we?
Oh, sorry, we have 29 and 30 as well. My mistake.
Belmont.
Okay. So 25 Belmont is an application to alter the existing two-story townhouse by constructing a rear two-story addition, a rear second-story deck, and a rear yard carport with access from road in place. There are 6 variants under the new bylaw, 1 under the old bylaw. And on this application, we have HPS Heritage Preservation is okay with the application. Urban Forestry is requesting condition number 1. We have correspondence in opposition from 29, 38, 42, 25, 46, 27 Belmont, as well as the Belmont Hillsborough Heritage Interest Group, and the co-chairs of the ABC Residents Association. And that's all we have.
So on this application, I would be requesting a deferral as well. Given the opposition that we've seen and the concerns that they've mentioned, we understand those concerns, and we would like to revise the plans to alleviate many of these concerns.
Okay, was there consultation with the neighbors prior to either submitting this application, or I don't know if you submitted probably months ago to get on today's agenda? Was there consultation either by you or your clients?
I don't believe so.
I see you're not listed as the agent. Rocco Chipano, did you just?
The applicant, yeah. As the agent for the
the
applicant.
applicants?
Yeah.
Okay, because he's listed as the agent, and someone else is listed
That's
as
the
the owner.
problem. I made these points this morning. I'll make them again this afternoon. To come to this committee without negotiating and discussing with the people that are most affected by what you're asking about is irresponsible, because you're here, now there are problems on the table that could have been resolved before you came here. If a deferral is approved or supported, we have to go through all this again. And a deferral would only make sense, in my view, if there's some new information available to you today that you didn't have before, and if you're prepared to make substantial revisions in response to that new information. So I'd like to hear your response to that.
I think that the issue with massing, it's something that we can address, and privacy and shadows. I believe that these are all issues that we will be addressing with revisions.
You could have done it, yeah. Especially since you know these are pretty big variances. You're going from 1 times coverage to 1.28. You're going for over a 5-meter depth variance. These are, someone says, okay, I'm just going a couple of feet, no one's going to worry. Okay, I can see in those cases, but when you have a major application, which turns out to create a lot of opposition, which people get at the last minute because they only get served with the application information a couple of weeks before, and they have to run to we have the ratepayers writing in. I agree with Mr. Nipfeld, to not approach the neighbors, the most immediate neighbors, the one behind, the ones on either side, the one across, is just flies in the face of good faith planning in terms of dealing with your neighbors.
I mean, I
Everyone
certainly,
has to scramble around and do these long letters at the last minute when there's no consultation. I believe the website does talk, and you're an experienced agent here at this committee, to go and speak to your neighbors, let them know what's going on.
I understand it, but it's in my capacity, being on board at the stage that was brought on board, I would recommend the same thing. Unfortunately, those aren't the circumstances that I'm talking about today. And so what we'd like to do is, at this point, what I can...
Okay, I guess you've formally asked for a deferral. I have to, I guess, hear what the neighbors have to say on the issue of deferral, whether they would like, they've taken time out of their schedules to come here today and to scrounge around to write letters and get the ratepayers to write, ratepayer group to write letters on their behalf, what they feel about a deferral. And then still, the committee is very backed up in applications. I was sat in on an Etobicoke hearing a couple of months ago, and we deferred like 10 items. It was crazy, because it just means it just continues. So here at Toronto, we don't readily grant deferrals.
Like, is the intention of the deferral to significantly change the nature of the application? Because I have significant concerns about the
Yes.
application as is.
Yes.
Particularly the deck and the carport, extremely unacceptable in my view. So I don't know if it's just a little bit of tweaking here and there, because to me, there's no point.
No, we have significant changes,
Yeah, let's hear.
including the complete removal of the carport and deck.
So you have to come to the podium, please. Sorry. Did you get your name and address, sir?
My name's Doug Bukasvik. I live at 25 Belmont Street. I'm the neighbor next door. So yeah, no, we'd hate to defer
Sorry,
this.
this is 25.
Sorry, 27 Belmont Street. Apologies, yeah. So we don't want to defer this. I came back from vacation early. I was in Europe because I wanted to come back and make sure to be here today for that. He's taken day off work. Nora as well is taking time out of her schedule. We've worked with a planner. We've had a bunch of different associations come in.
And you weren't approached by, it sounds like Mr. Doan was pretty experienced.
Never.
Maybe came on the file kind of at the late date, but there's a Rocco Chapano and there's a Than Thuy Nguyen as the owner. They didn't approach you?
Didn't approach me.
Okay. You're the next door neighbor.
Definitely opposed to our referral, yeah. That's right.
You came back from Europe. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the committee members on the issue of deferral.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we hear the item today.
Seconder?
I'm seconding it. I agree. I mean, I think these should have been dealt with before, so.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the matter is not deferred. We are going to hear it today. So let's have Mr. Doan come back up to the podium, give us a brief presentation, and then we'll hear from the neighbors.
So what we'd be proposing to do would be as far as the revisions go, to be the complete removal of the carport with the deck on top.
What variance is that?
Let me, take a look. So that would be affecting the building depth.
So that'd be variance number one?
Variance number one.
So that should be deleted?
Well, it would be altered. So the carport, just the complete removal.
Yeah, that's another thing. Now it's going to take 25 an hour to do
No,
this.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's appropriate, if I might. I think we have to hear what you've got here, and if we decide against it, you're going to have to go away and come back with a new application. We can't make these major changes, because when you make a change and it affects 3 or 4 variances, we're going to be here all afternoon trying to negotiate the change.
I understand that. I mean, that's
And I know
essentially
you
why
understand
I
because
would.
you've come before us. I mean, I think the best solution here is to have you withdraw the application and come back with a new application.
Okay. Okay. I would agree with that.
Is that
Yeah, because we're going to hear from you, we're going to hear from the neighbors.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to get refused.
Yeah.
Well, you get it, you could, if you want to take that way, then you can, if you want to go to T-Lab and appeal it.
He's agreed to withdraw.
Yeah.
I've agreed to withdraw, yes.
Okay, I guess we don't need a motion to accept.
We need,
Okay.
do we need a motion?
Yeah.
To withdraw or to close the file?
Close the file.
Mr. Chairman, I would put forward a motion to close this file without refund.
I second it.
All in favor? Matters, application is refused. Just to let you know, the application has been withdrawn by the applicant because, first of all, there's no consultation, then he was going to start making changes on the fly, which we don't, is not fair to everyone else here in the room. So he's now agreed to withdraw the application. So likely he will consult with his client, come back with a new application. Hopefully they will discuss that with you. Maybe you can leave him some contact information with email and phone numbers and your names. And hopefully there'll be pre-consultation this time around. Okay, have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does this go on the file, that the application was withdrawn?
Yes,
Thank you so much.
be in the minutes, yes. Okay. Okay, and as my colleague pointed out, I thought we were finished. In fact, we have two other, we had the first three of the 1:30 agenda opposed and the last two. And all the ones in the middle were fine. So the next one is item number 2946 West Lynn Avenue. Sorry, number 2946 West Lynn. This is an application to construct a two-story laneway suite at the rear of an existing two-story detached dwelling. There is only one variance. That variance is a laneway suite is required to be on a lot with the rear lot line or side lot line abutting a lane for at least 3.5 meters. The new two-story laneway suite proposed will be located on a lot where the north side lot line abuts the lane for only 3.05 meters. And on this application, we have before us covering letter from the agent applicant, correspondence from the applicant. We have community planning memo. We have development engineering looking for their standard laneway conditions in the event of approval. We have 16 form letters in support signed by area residents on West Lynn, Rose Heath, and there's a whole number, 16 of them. Correspondence concern from 30 Merrill, and opposition from 2 Merrill, 54 West Lynn, 28 Merrill, 48 West Lynn, which is right next door, 50 West Lynn, which is 2 on the other side. I don't see 44. Oh, there's a whole lot of, I know, other form letters signed, again, another 31 form letters. That one is, again, has the neighbor next door on the other side. So both 46 and 48, both adjacent neighbors are opposed, and that's what we have. Community planning. Yeah, I mentioned the development on the event of an approval. And what does planning have to say? I don't see if we have the planning memo. Yeah, okay, we don't have a planning on this one, or we do?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I intend to read part of the planning memo.
Okay, right, I see an email correspondence. Oh, it's only an email, it's not a memo. Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Daniel Siegel. I'm the owner and applicant of 46 West Lynn.
Okay.
I'm representing myself, and today I hope to convey the idea that the variance we're requesting is minor in nature, meets the intent of the bylaw, and is congruous with the official plan of the city.
Okay, yeah, what I want you to focus on, because when I read this, I saw, okay, you're point less than half of a meter of a variance where of the amount that you have to abut a lane, but I understand it's basically presenting like a house in a backyard rather than a laneway house. Laneway houses are permitted now, they're encouraged, but in this instance, there's an issue whether this actually qualifies as a laneway house due to this variance.
Sure, and the other issue here is laneway housing is relatively new, so I'd like to walk everyone through the bylaws that are applicable in this situation.
I think you have 5 minutes. I think you should focus on the fact of why this should be considered a laneway house, why that variance.
Okay, so
Whereas you're about 3.05 and not 3.55 is something that we should consider minor. in
Absolutely.
Your application.
Absolutely. So if we could refer to the diagram up there. The issue is from the top left-hand corner to the, basically under the Y. That should be 3.5 meters. In our situation, it's 3.05. So that is the only variance that we're requesting.
So it looks like your house is at the end of the lane.
Right, so let me,
The lane doesn't go like that as it does for the properties
so Stephanie,
Merrill and Murdoch.
Yeah.
It just sort of touches you the other way, right?
so I'd like to go through that in further detail. So Stephanie Hong, the community planner, wrote in her letter on May 2nd, I'll just read the whole thing because it's super applicable. So I understand the applicant is only requesting one variance. The property has to have at least 3.5 meters of frontage on a public laneway. Usually that's in the rear. So the rear property line needs to be at least 3.5 meters of frontage on a public laneway. In this case, it's 3.5 meters. We've established that. The property line configuration is a little odd, and I'm going to go into why it's odd for the laneway suite, but seems like it's a technical laneway suite. It just doesn't have the full 3.5 meter frontage. If they did, it would be, as I quote, as of a right development. It also seems they have emergency access, so they're clear on that. So the first thing I want to point out is why it's a little bit odd. Traditionally, if we could put the light, traditionally you would expect a property that's going to build a laneway suite for the rear yard to be abutting the lane. In our orientation, it's the side yard, the highlighted portion, which abuts the lane. Now, not only that, if you look at we're at the very end of a lane. So, Joss, if you'll show the site map, the highlighted area represents the lane, and our property is the orange, the purple property there. And you could see that it extends well beyond other properties on our side of the street. It's roughly 3.5 meters longer than our neighbors. And it's on that property that we feel we meet the technical definition of a laneway suite. Now, I consulted with George Pantazis, who was materially involved in the construction of the laneway bylaws, to get a comment as to what the intent of that particular bylaw is. And I'm going to read the email from July 23rd. This email followed shortly after a short conversation by phone. So it reads, can you confirm as per our previous phone conversation today, July 23rd, that the intention behind the frontage on a lane requirement of 3.5 meters is so that you don't get laneway houses built on a narrow 12-foot lot resulting in a sliver of a laneway house? And then he confirms, yes, Daniel, I confirm that was the intent. So what that means in actual terms is he doesn't want east, in our situation, if you could put the site map back up. The other one. There we go. So if you look at the east and west walls, the distance from the south property line to the walkway is 4.8 meters. What George Pantazis, the city planner, tries to achieve with his bylaw is for that wall to be no less than 3.5 meters. If it was oriented as to any other way, if it was 3.5 meters or less, it should be rejected as that's not the intent. So I present to you today that it is within the intent of the bylaw that the variance we're requesting meets the intended purpose of the bylaw as it is right now. At this point, I want to mention a few things. We have 42 letters of support from our neighbors. There is a strong contingent of immediate neighbors who don't approve for various concerns.
Sorry, I see in my briefing notes, we have 16 letters of support.
Yeah.
And
They were uploaded on Monday. I have
Under
copies.
31, so I don't know, we had 16, but
Yeah.
it's not a numbers game. It's, we're looking at
Right.
whether this qualifies as a laneway house.
Yeah.
The fact that you have less than 3.5, in your particular circumstance, where you're at the actual very end.
Yeah. N-
So you use the lane, your property can access the lane.
Yeah, so
Are there,
we're maintaining our parking spots. So south of the highlighted mark, that's our parking spot,
okay,
and we don't intend on changing that.
so your property abuts the lane for 3.15, but in fact, the proposed laneway house doesn't abut it at all, because
But-
you're putting your car there.
Correct. And as per Stephanie Hong, the city planner, she calls it a technical laneway suite.
Great.
And it's a variance on a technicality.
Hold on, you want to go back to that last image? So what if you had the laneway at the very end and you had the car in, I don't know if you could even do that. Would that change anything? You'd still be deficient, but here you seem to not be abutting the lane at all, because you're parking your car there. If you reversed it, I don't know if that would be any better.
I don't think that
Or like a
there's
back
any
road.
obligation for you to be directly on a lane. In fact, there's a setback requirement from the lane.
Oh, it says the north side lot,
Yeah.
okay, with the side, rear lot or side lot abuts the lane, for at least 3.5. Okay, you're right, it's not the laneway house itself, it talks about the rear or the side lot line.
Could you explain to me, does the laneway, as it ends here, does it hammerhead? How do you get out of that parking space?
I think you had a plan showing that.
So ideally, we always back in, pretty much. We'd have to do a three-point
Back
turn.
all the way along the lane? How do you get out, like, can you go back to the other drawing?
So,
Here, hold on. This is your parking space.
yeah.
How do you get out of here? The lane's here.
So,
Hammerheaded, so that you've got extra space?
There's a, yeah, it just makes a left turn.
You just drive along and you come in like that.
The red line indicates the delineation of the lane. So there's more than a car length
In width.
into the lane,
In width.
in width, and depth.
Back in,
Yeah.
right? You drive up and you back down. Okay.
I mean, it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes when everyone's parked in there, I back in straight from the street. Other times, it's a three-point turn. Sometimes, it depends on the situation. One of the issues I think I probably should bring up, Nelson Rodriguez, the zoning examiner on this file, told me that he's seen about 50 applications for a laneway house and has only issued 2 building permits. And the main reason for that is the fire access. So, and I believe that the changing lanes document identified 1,000 potential properties for a laneway suite in all of Toronto. And the main reason is the requirement for fire access to be within 90 meters of the fire hydrant and to have 3 feet of clearance on the side of the property. And I urge the committee to keep that in mind whenever they're making the decision. I know it may or may not be, to some, desirable, but the city is definitely in a rental crisis right now, and I believe that providing an additional rental stock is in line with the official plan, and our intention for use of this laneway is as a rental. That's our current position, and we believe that we've had about 10 iterations of drawings to drop the variances to just 1. If we could look at the site plan one more time, we've tried our hardest to protect the privacy of our neighbors, so there's no windows on the north or south side. The windows on the east side are going to be frosted, and the windows on the west side overlook other people's garages, so there isn't a direct line of sight into people's property.
Mr. Siegel, if you could wrap up, we let you go on at your 9 minutes.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. You'll have a chance to respond to the neighbors. Do we have a spokesperson for the neighbors? Well, we can have more than, but just don't cover the same points over and over. If 2 or 3 of you need to speak, we can maybe speak for a little less than 5 minutes. But if you all have different perspectives, if you're all saying the same thing, it's not really, necessary.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll speak first, but there'll be another as well. I'm a little short, so I'm just going to bring this a little down. All right, so I have a letter, so I'll just stick to.
Can we get your name and address, please?
Yes, so good afternoon. My name is Maria Petru, and I, along with my husband Daniel Avramov, are the owners of the residences of 48 West LYNN, along with our 3 young daughters. And we're immediate neighbors to the north, and we'd like to formally register our strong objection to the application for variance for the construction of a laneway house at that address. Firstly, I'd like to point out the lack of engagement with immediate or affected neighbors in this process. The applicant's solicitation of support for this proposal is disingenuous, as the letters were taken from residences whose homes are not primarily affected by the proposed structure. Immediate neighbors who would likely be adversely affected were not contacted by the applicant during the proposal process. The City of Toronto website indicates that this application was submitted in April. The applicants did not attempt to contact us until July 25th, only 1 day before our written letters were due. The numerous letters of objection from the neighbors who will actually be affected illustrate the negative impact that on the neighborhood. In reviewing the plan submitted, we believe that additional variances are required and have not been submitted. For example, in accordance with the requirements of the requirements outlined in the bylaw, it appears that the setback required for a laneway suite with a laneway abutting the side lot, as in this case, is 1.5 meters. The plans submitted do not appear to allow for such setback. We would urge the city planners to review and investigate this further. Also, obvious from the submitted plan is the fact that the proposed laneway house is problematic, atypical, with reduced lane access, which has necessitated the variance and this hearing. Only a small portion of the side lot abuts the laneway, rather than an entire side or rear lot line. If such an atypical and reduced access is deemed acceptable, it sets a precedent for approval for other non-desirable, non-conforming applications. Further, the variance requested is not minor. The applicants requested a 13% variance, which is a material change from the intent of the bylaw. Acceptance of such a reduction of a minimum established by city planners early in the laneway program's life sets a precedent for future reductions which may lead to other complications. It should be noted, at this point, I would like to assure that the committee, that we support the idea of laneway houses and we recognize the dire need for affordable housing in the city. This is not a case of NIMBYism. Rather, we feel that the granting of this variance to a brand new, recently passed bylaw could lead to a loss of configuration control for future developments in the city as they become acceptable by precedent. The final 2 tests of the Committee of Adjustments refer to the general intent and purpose of the bylaw and official plan. The intent of the laneway suites program is to utilize underdeveloped properties to facilitate the creation of additional urban residential space without impact to the neighborhood. I would like to challenge the idea that this space is underdeveloped. The applicant's recent large home expansion hardly characterizes this property as underdeveloped. It has in fact reached the maximum, as defined by the city. The proposal of an additional house on this property affects the enjoyment of all surrounding neighbors who will have to sacrifice privacy. This has a huge impact on the community and neighborhood at large. No one in the city would deny the need for affordable housing. As I stated before, we are in support of the laneway house project, if appropriate applied, and in the spirit of the intent of the bylaw. The purpose and intent of the purpose of the bylaw is to increase residential housing, which we fully support. However, the applicant's exploits of various websites to utilize their basement as a short-term rental have caused significant disruption in the neighborhood. The addition of a similar space in a laneway would only serve to intensify such disruption. In summary, Approval of this requested variance allows the creation of a largely negative impact on the neighborhood and disregards the standards and requirements only recently set by professionals in establishing the Laneway Suite program. We ask that you not approve this variance and ensure that the Laneway Suites program is implemented correctly, appropriately, and in accordance with the requirements and intentions of the city.
Thank you for a very good presentation.
Right?
You mentioned, perhaps as an answer question for Mr. Siegel, usually you said they just had an extension done to their house. Usually the decision, if there's been a previous decision on this property, perhaps Madam Secretary Treasurer can check, usually that would have been included in our materials. So I don't know if he built that as of right and didn't have to go into committee, or if we just didn't get a copy of the decision. I don't believe there's any, the laneway suite vis-a-vis total coverage on a lot, if that's normally a variance or not, but anyway, thank you for that. We'll get that answer. So other speakers, that's a very good presentation, so. If you'd like to submit letters, that's fine. We have plenty of them. I know some of them are you know, they submitted the same letter, which I think there's a whole bunch I've just been reading while that application was made, that they talk about there was no consultation, that they just went through the last year and a half their extension on their main house, security concerns about Airbnb, et cetera. There's no previous decision on this property? Okay, so we'll ask Mr. Siegel when he gets back up about that. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Name and address.
My name is Jared Duncan. Me and my wife Diana Souza are neighbors at 28 Merrill, so we are kitty corners.
Okay, I think I've seen your letter.
Seen our letter from my wife, yeah. Yep. So I have some additional information to add to that letter. I was going to reference that letter. I believe it was very well thought out, but in doing some more digging, I'd just like to bring to the committee's attention. So right now we've got the variance that's before us. I believe that's been outlined pretty well. More additional concerning us and my household is some of the other issues that we believe are variances that are being overlooked. We personally believe or feel that this application is being pushed through quickly and the proper care and attention has not been taken to it. For example, the minimum lot line, as outlined in the bylaw, we believe it's contrary to that. The soft speed coverage of 85% we believe is contrary to. And the
we're only showing that one variance. We're not showing coverage or anything.
My
He said
point,
he's
sir,
eliminated
is that we feel that this application is being rushed through, and perhaps.
You think they're missing variances?
I believe it is. I believe that there's some other
they've had a
information.
zoning review done by staff.
Agreed.
And it sounds like even though there was no consultation till the day before, that he's been working at this for quite some time and had iterations of plans.
Okay, and there's also some inconsistencies that we could point out between the survey on record and the submitted plan that outlines some of those issues that I had brought up. Okay.
Do any of those differences between the survey and the plan affect the amount of frontage?
Frontage with what respect, sir? Because I've got the side yard setback, which I believe that plan shows it, or the plan that was previously posted up as 1 meter, but the bylaw calls out 1.5 meters, if I'm not mistaken. The softscape is also an issue. The survey on record is not showing the.
You mentioned the survey didn't agree with this plan.
With what respect?
You made a comment that the survey, I understood you to say that the survey and his plan were not in agreement. Is that correct? Did I miss?
Correct, yes. His addition is not shown on the survey. It's not pinned, nor is the location of the mature tree that's on the property. So there's been some adjustments made for the foundation to accommodate the TPZ.
But the configuration of where the lane intersects with the property, that's still accurate?
That's still accurate to my knowledge, and I believe we've covered that in detail.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? I'm pointing out some other inconsistencies. Anyway, I believe the rest of ours have been covered off in the presentation that followed before me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. You know, I'm just looking at these letters of support and the fact that we've heard there's been no consultation until the 28th. It looks like the applicant has support letters from people on Roseneath, nowhere, quite a distance away, on July the 12th. July the 21st, sorry. Another one on a street, Moberly, or July 21st, another one from July 12th. So they went around to the far-flung neighbors and got letters signed weeks before, unless they're just friends of theirs and whatever, and then they went to the most directly affected neighbors, it looks like, and the others on July 28th, July 26th, but you'd think you would approach the most directly affected neighbors, especially if you've been working on this for a while. So the fact that there's no consultation is disappointing here. Anyway, would anyone else like to weigh in, or should we hear from Mr. Siegel in response?
Can I just do one?
Sure. If it's something different, hopefully.
My name's Donna Singleton and I'm at 54 West Lynn,
Okay.
but I'm actually reading a note from the people who live at the entrance. Their house is the first entrance at 2 Merrill Avenue, so they're the house where you'll come out.
When you say what about them?
They couldn't come today. The gentleman was
Letter
supposed to...
saying they're representing you?
Correct,
or-
yeah. They sent me the email just to chat to that. And all their...
They live at what property?
They live at 2 Merrill. They're the first house when you drive off Merrill Avenue. They're the first house on the laneway.
Yeah, the first house on the lane.
So their main concern is that
You're
they're...
just a few doors away.
Sorry,
54.
I live on 54, which is 4 houses north
What's
of the
East
proposed property.
Is there East Lynn?
East Lynn is on the other side of the street, so our street comes down on West Lynn and it rotates around and goes up on East Lynn.
I got an early letter from them, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
So the gentleman who owns this house and his wife, they just want to point out that there is only one entrance and exit point to the laneway. The laneway is not a horseshoe. They said, from our home to Merrill Avenue West, the increased traffic means significant increase in noise and vehicles. There would be significant safety concerns with foot traffic in the laneway, an area that is not properly lit and has hidden access to area homes. It is unclear how any build can occur without severe disruption, noise, traffic in this small laneway, and the construction of laneway homes will require heavy machines, trucks, backhoes. There are legitimate concerns for safety of children who use the laneway currently
You mean
for play area and
during
rides.
construction or just after it's built?
During construction as well.
Yeah,
So,
really, I realize it's a concern, but it's really not something we really take into
No.
consideration. But thank you for clarifying there is only one entrance in the lane, and thank you. And when were you consulted?
I was one of the neighbours who was consulted on at 9 p.m. on the 22nd of July, right before they had to have the variance put up in their window. On the map, we are the people who were in the box. All the red dots are the people that they got approval from, and letters that were sent to you on July the 2nd to the 4th.
So those are the people in support?
They're the people in support.
Thank you.
No one was...
No one on the
yeah,
lane and-
correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Very briefly, please, if it's something new.
No, just, I'm 52 West Lynn Avenue, and Michelle Hamilton.
Thank you.
Michelle Hamilton, 52 West Lynn Avenue. We weren't consulted until we got our notices in the mail on the variance committee, and after we got together to oppose it, reviewing it, that's when we were consulted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. Mr. Siegel, please come up and, first of all, I'd like you to hear about this extension you did to your house. Did you need a variance for that? You come to committee because we...
So,
Sorry? Oh, right. So I'm just asking him, what was the situation?
so if I may, I'd like to answer your immediate questions and then have our neighbor John, who would like to speak in support.
You're the agent, or you're the applicant, you're in rebuttal. You can't introduce any more information. You're only rebutting what they've raised.
Okay.
Okay? Sorry.
And chief among the things that they've raised are, why haven't you consulted with these people earlier? That's irresponsible.
Okay, so if I may, I'd like to address the chairman's question and then I'll address yours.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, just a sec. Is
Yes.
is the person here to speak in support, or are you using the person to help with your rebuttal?
No, to speak in support.
So the people in support have an opportunity to speak. So he should speak before you then.
So he should speak before, and then Mr. Siegel will respond. Okay, I thought he was going to do the rebuttal.
I thought he was going to add information.
Hello, sir. Can we get your name and address?
Okay. Hello, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Muir. I live at 36 West Lynn. Been there for 42 years.
Okay.
And when I spoke with Daniel and Jocelyn, with respect to their application. I went and looked at the property, looked at the plan, and felt that it was appropriate and honoring in everything but a technicality the intention of the city's laneway house changes. And with respect to parking and access, I've seen their vehicle parked in exactly the spot that would be used with the neighbor's car next to it, and there's absolutely no issue with a car pulling out across that laneway to go to the west, to exit.
Okay.
And I have no problems. I think that it's a positive development with respect to the neighborhood and the future of the city and the vitality of the area, which I've been in for a long time, and that's all I have to say.
Consulted? When were you first made aware of this application?
Sorry, what?
When were you first made aware of this application? Before the notice went up? When the notice went up?
About couple of weeks back, I guess now.
Okay.
I mean, we received it in the mail. I'd have to check on the
You hadn't
date.
spoken to them before?
Yeah.
You weren't aware before you?
And, you know, I saw the application. I went up and I actually just walked up the Mutual Drive from West Lynn and just looked into the yard just to sort of better understand it. And then subsequent to that, I talked with them. And it seemed perfectly reasonable to me, and something that's a positive thing for the city at this point, particularly in the older neighborhoods, because the laneways have been not a particularly great area within the city, in the old city, and this is the beginning of something to revitalize.
No, that's
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Sir, I can't see. I'm looking. See it goes around the corner. It looks like there's 42, 40, 38 is on the corner. Then there looks like there's, where's your house? Because I see 48 and then I see 30. I see 38 and 30. I don't see anything in between 38 and 30.
Michael? It's this one.
Oh, okay, fine. So
Yeah,
he's
I'm
not
on the other
on
side of Merrill.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to see where you
Side
were.
street. I'm 5 houses away, but I'm across the street and then up.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
That's all.
Thank you.
Okay. So if I may, I'd like to answer your first question, which was respect to the addition that we done previous to this. It was a fast-track application done as a right. And then your question...
Consultation.
Consultation. Could you put up the letter that was mailed, please? So we made about 10 modifications to our drawings. We finally had a final version July 9th, and at which point we made the decision that we were going to wait until everyone had the drawings in front of them, make up their own decision, and then consult with them. Eileen Hong told me that there's no obligation to consult by a certain date, so long as you try to consult everyone prior to the Committee of Adjustment date. And that's our position.
So you followed instructions?
To the best of my ability. This is my first time. I'm not a regular here.
Because it puts people, it's summertime, people are away, people are, it doesn't give the people a lot of time to react. We often see people writing in, and that's the process. Why do we get this notice such a short period of time prior to the hearing?
My only point would be, it's, in my view, that process, it's not your fault, you followed the instructions, but that process is stacked against the people that are opposed. Because you've been working on this for however long.
Yeah.
You have had an opportunity to polish your presentation. You made a good presentation.
Thank you.
You've had an opportunity to clarify or correct any errors and mistakes. And these people are rushed and don't have the same opportunity. They're as impacted by what you're doing as you are. And I just personally believe that pre-consultation well in advance of bringing applications to this committee is an absolute necessity, or we spend endless time, as we are now, talking about things that could possibly have been corrected or altered before we got here.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. Part of the delay, I mean, yes, our initial application was April 4th, but we didn't even know there was going to be a variance until after the zoning review process was completed, and then it was a series of going back and forth with Nelson Rodriguez. So,
I understand that.
Next time, there will be a much more advanced consultation.
Yes, you could have figured, just like your renovation on your house, your extension, you could maybe have done it as of right and not have to come to committee, and then you don't have to even consult with neighbors other than.
So
anyway, such is life. So if you just have a few more minutes, if you'd like to respond to some of the issues. I know you answered my question, Mr.
Yeah.
Whitfeld, so if you want to just generally rebut what the neighbors have had to say.
So one of the things the neighbor is saying is that you've been renting your basement to,
Mhm.
I don't know what the hell it is, B&B.
Airbnb, yeah.
They're afraid you're going to do that with this house.
So if I may, I'd like my wife to do our final conclusion. Is that allowable?
No, you're already up here. We have to keep moving along.
Okay.
You can,
Slide 1, please.
can you not tell us what she was going to say, or?
I am. I'm just waiting for her to put slide 1 up, and then I'll do my rebuttal.
Thank you.
So, again, our property is a bit unusual. It meets the technical definition of the laneway suite per the zoning examiner, per planning, per engineering and traffic control, and fire protection. We planned it in such a way to protect the privacy of our neighbors. Mr. Jared suggested that the northern side yard setback should have been 1.5 meters. That's if there are openings. In this case, there are no openings, so we're allowed to actually go up to the northern lot line, but we decided not to do that. Slide number 2, please. This is a view of our backyard. I believe the intention of this was to show the look and feel of the laneway as it stood yesterday, and the close proximity to the neighbors. Slide number 3, please.
That arrow, the green arrow.
To be honest, this is her presentation, and could we please let her speak? Because I wasn't prepared for the rebuttal. She is the homeowner, and so am I, so I mean, I don't think it would be a huge...
As long as it's no one just answering these questions.
Yeah, okay.
And I have a second question. Is the red arrow, is that your car that the red arrow is pointing to?
Sorry, just for the record, my name's Jocelyn Tatebia. I'm Daniel's wife, his better half. So yes, so what I did for this picture is I really wanted to show what the view would be like. So the red arrow is pointing to my car. So from the first level of the house, there will be windows that's facing west, but they're going to be higher than 6 feet. So they're going to go 6 feet up to the floor. So for people like me who aren't 6 feet, in order to look out the window at my lovely car, you'd actually have to stand on a chair. And then the green arrow is to show the windows from the second floor would be looking into a covered garage that's actually 2 houses west of ours. And so for privacy concerns, there are no windows in that garage because, of course, no one lives there. So that was meant to address the privacy concerns in that we don't feel that they're significant because the people would be looking into our house as well as to a covered garage where no one lives. And the eastern windows would face my own house, and they're going to be frosted, so you can't see directly in or out. Then the privacy concerns raised by, the second concern that we saw in a lot of our letters, we want to let the committee and our neighbors know we took them to heart, and this is a professional landscape architect design. It's showing the green space that we can create in the backyard in between our house and the laneway house, and that, of course, would address issues of drainage, but we want to highlight that there are no issues and variances sought on drainage because zoning has already deemed to be those appropriate. So this would just... One second. Daniel, can you move to see the tree? Move to the right. So the drainage here would actually be increased by the amount of green space from this professional design. We do have a tree that our neighbors have been concerned about, and that's on the very top left of the slide. That is going to remain there. We love the tree. We've made a tree protection zone. That has been reviewed by Urban Forestry, and they actually came by our property on July the 12th, and they've deemed that to be, based on their in-person, to be appropriate. Are there any other questions that the committee has from us, or sir, from me?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so let's take the matter into committee for a decision. Yeah, that's right. I thought you were coming up to deal with the question Mr. Granstein had about the Airbnb activities in the basement and whether that, well,
Yeah.
that was his question. That's what we thought you were coming up to
I'd like an
address.
answer.
So, do you want to put a photo up? That's,
No, please,
Okay.
Mr. Siegel, you're speaking now.
please. So,
I asked you, there's an allegation that you've been renting your basement out to,
yeah,
on a temporary basis to B&B, whatever it is, and that you're likely to do that with your house.
the immediate and long-term intentions of the Laneway House are for a long-term rental.
Okay, what about your basement?
Currently, it is being used, but that's outside the jurisdiction of the Committee of Adjustment for the variance. Everything has been approved.
Airbnb legislation prevents people from renting out their basements for Airbnb, but you're right, it's not before us, it's before somebody else.
And the moment that it is illegal, I will stop doing it. But currently, even within the Laneway bylaw, it allows
Right,
short-term
it's
rentals.
not before us, anyway. It may be before somebody else, but it's not before us.
But-
obviously, it's something that
But to answer your question,
suspicions among the neighbors, right?
absolutely. And prior to this consultation, I had no idea that the neighbors felt this way about the Laneway, about the short-term rental. And now that they've voiced their opinion, I'm going to think differently about doing it in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, committee, is anyone ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether I'll get support for this or not, but I'm unable to support this application. I do not agree with the planner that gave you advice that this is a technical amendment. I don't believe that's the case. I think it goes to the very heart of what a laneway suite is. At what point is the amount of exposure on the lane so narrow that it literally is not a laneway suite? I think it's at 3.5 meters. And I think that's why the bylaw says this. My understanding of a laneway suite is a suite that provides additional accommodation on the lot, but which has access directly from a laneway, and that one whole frontage of that particular property is exposed to the lane. I feel that this is the thin edge of a wedge and is a dangerous precedent. I'm unable to support it, and I recommend the application be turned down.
Seconder for that?
I'm going to second Mr. Nipfo's motion. I feel the same in terms of his reasoning, and to me, the part of the purpose of having it on a laneway is the laneway does provide a buffer between the housing at the rear of the property. There's no buffer here with the way this lot is situated in terms of where it sits in terms of the lane, so I don't think this, in my view, meets the requirements of a laneway suite. So I'm seconding the motion.
Okay, Mr. Grandisi, would you like to weigh in before the vote this
Yes,
morning?
I would be not supporting the motion because we're here as a Committee of Adjustment to make minor variances. This seems to me to be a minor variance. It complies in all other respects with the laneway suite, so I don't see any reason why we shouldn't approve this application. And with respect to how it abuts the laneway, there's nothing in the bylaw that says how it should abut the laneway. It only talks about the width of the size of the lot line abutting the lane. And in this case, we're perhaps 1.5 feet short of the requirement. I think that's something for the Committee of Adjustments to approve or not approve a variance. In my case, I would approve this variance.
Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried 3-1, dissenting.
Yep.
The application is refused. Neighbors, please make sure you fill out those white decision request cards and include your email address. In the event of an appeal, you want to be notified, and that's how you're going to be notified if you fill out those cards and put your email address. Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to our last item on the 1:30 agenda. For those of you just arriving for the 3:30 items, we were delayed this morning, only started the afternoon agenda after 2 o'clock, but it looks like we're catching up because after our next contested item, I believe none of the items on the 2:30 agenda are opposed, although there were 2 people who weren't here when I vetted the agenda. So perhaps I can start with that just to find out if they're here and if the matters are opposed. Item number 3634 White Pine Avenue. Is the applicant here? Okay, you weren't here when I vetted the agenda. Is anyone else here on White Pine? Any neighbors here with concerns on White Pine? Number 36, okay. So we will call you when your application is heard. And as well, no one was here for 437 Russell Hill Road when I vetted the 2:30 agenda. Or is the applicant or agent here on 437 Russell Hill? That's you, Mr. Sprague? Okay, so we'll again, is there anybody else here opposed to 437 Russell Hill? Okay, so the entire 2:30 agenda is unopposed, which is good news. And we might as well wait to vet the agenda for 3:30, or how about I do that now? Okay, let's vet the 3:30 agenda since it's already after 4, and that way if any of the items are opposed, you can go out in the hall and have a discussion while we do the 2:30 matters. So item number 39, 203 Holborne Avenue. Is the agent or applicant here? Put up your hand, thank you. Any neighbors here on 203 Holborne with concerns? No. No. Item 40, 435 Mortimer Avenue. Applicant, thank you. Any neighbors here on 435 Mortimer with concerns? Okay. Item number 41, 95 Dunkirk Road. Any neighbors on 95 Dunkirk? No. No, 3 for 3. Item 42, A, B, and C, 71 Lee Avenue. Applicant, agent, thank you. Any neighbors here on 71 Lee Avenue? It's a severance and consents. No. Variances, no, okay. And item number 43, 55 Lakeshore Boulevard. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 55 Lakeshore Boulevard with concerns? And our last application on 44 7 Yonge Street. Any neighbors here on 7 Yonge Street? Okay, so we're batting 1,000 for the no opposed applications at the 2:30 to 3:30 agenda. 3:30 people, if you want to go out in the hall, it could be a little bit of while, not to consult, but to do something else. Yeah. Okay, so our last contested item at 1:30 is 41 Summerhill Gardens. Would the applicant and neighbors please come forward?
Yes, good afternoon. My
Good
name
afternoon,
is
Mr. Sprague. Just
Tom
let me hang on for
Sprague.
a
Yeah,
second.
okay, sure.
This is an application to alter the existing 3-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition with a ground floor deck on the east side and a cantilevered rear 3rd-story addition with a deck on the west side. There are 4 variances. And before us on this application, we have 6 form letters in support, signed by 39, 43, 45, and 64 Summerhill, 46 and 68 Summerhill Gardens as well. Correspondence in opposition from 112 Summerhill Gardens, 110 Summerhill Gardens, and 106 Summerhill Gardens. And covering letter from the agent, and we have no conditions, no input from city staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have met extensively out in the hall with the neighbors from Summerhill Avenue. That's the one behind, not Summerhill Gardens. There's been a lot of communication on Summerhill Gardens. There are concerns, and they've asked that, which we would be agreeable to if we were to defer it to try and address their concerns which have come up. And we feel in the interest of getting a good product, we would support that if that was agreeable to you. And all these people
The neighbors are asking for the deferral.
Well, they're totally, I think, in both of us, we want to work together on this.
Was there any consultation before today?
A little bit, but not too much with holidays away, and there are a lot of communication, of course, on the other street. And you've got a lot of letters. I've got 4 more for that.
It's strange that all looks like the 3 or...
It's right in behind. The neighbors behind, in fact, live in Ottawa, but they're here today, so.
I see. So that 106, 110, and 112 are opposed. The singular digits on Summerhill Gardens are in support. So
Yes.
where are they in relation? Are these the backyards? Or?
Well, yes, that's correct. And
Okay,
the neighbors right behind live in
I see
Ottawa.
where they're the rear yard.
Yeah, and there's some issues that we would like to work with them.
It's a rear 2-story addition, so those are the people who are concerned with people in the rear.
Yeah, so we
Committee, we don't typically like
I know,
granting
yeah.
deferrals, especially when it's only one party looking for it. As this morning, we had the neighbors wanted to proceed earlier on today. The neighbors, I take it by show of hands, just you're interested, you agree, you think something can be worked out that's agreeable to all parties, you'll use your time. And I guess it's the applicant who's disadvantaged because his or her plans to go ahead with this project are getting delayed 2 to 3 months. Or more. Committee members on the issue of the deferral?
I have a question. Mr. Craig, I've made this speech 4 times today about the need to pre-consult and to not negotiate everything at the meeting. You've been before the committee many times. You usually pre-consult. Do I understand that the issues that have been raised that are matters of concern are not something that you could have addressed in the past, but they're things that have come up fairly recently?
Yes, very much so. Just things of being aware of their concerns and how to deal with it.
Are you prepared to, I don't know the nature of the concerns, but are you prepared to make major revisions in response to the concerns if that's what's necessary?
At this stage, an open mind on it, but I think we can work together to get something that's more satisfactory. And problem is the people right behind didn't live in Toronto, but they're here today. I do realize that, but okay. Oh, okay, but you weren't there. No, exactly. It's but you weren't there to talk. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we would like to have good neighborly relations, and so.
We haven't done, it gets unwieldy when you have a lot. I did a Etobicoke York hearing a couple of months ago. We deferred like over 10 items,
Yeah.
and that's unworkable. But we haven't done too many today. We've forged on, but it sounds like here everyone figures you can come out with a good result and avoid an appeal and all this other nonsense and bad blood. So I would certainly be in favor of the deferral. Let's see if someone will bring a motion in favor of the deferral.
I move that we defer this matter, subject to the fee and the usual terms.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd support that motion. This case is not like the others that we had today where we read the Riot Act. I think there are issues here that negotiation would adjust. The previous cases where we felt they were wasting time, there had been no discussion at all and really very little interest in making revisions. It sounds like we've got good spirit on both sides, and if that's going to result in a project that's better for the community, I'm in favor of it. So I would support the motion for deferral.
All in favor? Okay, we'll see you back here, or someone will see you back here. There'll be a new committee as of September 1st. So we'll see you back once you get, the scripts of when you're ready, contact staff, get you on the next available agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a nice afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the 1:30 hearing agenda, and now we'll move on the rest of the way. We're just unopposed applications, so hopefully it'll move pretty quickly. So the first application is 259 Crawford Street. The applicant, please come forward to the podium. This is an application to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear third-story addition. And I had a question mark on semi. This is a semi, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we have on this application before us covering letter from the agent, correspondence from Andy Trotter, the applicant, who I know is also an agent, so I guess we got 2 agents. We have correspondence and support from Loft Community Services, 261, right next door, 255, 22 Montrose, and a 9-signature petition signed by the 260, 267, 274, 280, and 810, 14, 18, and 20 Montrose. And that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee and staff. My name is Christian Chen. I'm the land use planner that's been retained by the applicant owners Yael Ben-Susan and Thierry Cohen-Scali. And if I may approach the members, I have a couple of documents I'd like to add that may or may not have been included in the file.
Okay, thank you. You have one copy for us, or, oh, this is just okay, just letters of support and a summary. Fine, we can just file that.
And I have another copy for each of the members of communications with the councilor's office. Mr. Councilor Layton.
Thank you.
And if you can let us just, you're seeking to go to 1.74 times coverage, where 1 time coverage is permitted. Can you let us know what the current floor space index is?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The current FSI is 1.48.
Okay, so you're already well above. Yeah.
If you'd like me to go through the variances, I'd be happy to. I have supplied the report from myself under C2 planning as
We
part of
need
the
a
file.
presentation? I don't think we need a presentation. No.
So at the beginning, before I was retained, the applicant agent, Mr. Trotter, the designer, had discussions with Mei Wang, which is the assistant planner that was assigned to the file. Subsequently, I reached out to Ms. Wang and had a discussion with her in person and explained to her the variances. And after that meeting, which happened last week, she hasn't provided a report in support and opposition. So I'm not going to say whether they support it or not.
It says, community planning has identified issues and would like revisions to be made. This is from Jason Bragg, the application technician, and then Angie Trotter said no revisions.
What date is that?
May. So
May
you.
the 17th, I found another one. This is from
Oh.
May 9. And it says, I still think the proposal is not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Could you reduce the size of the addition in half?
But they haven't given us this planning report after doing that. Maybe the guy went on vacation or something. So if they made that note, and you're saying you didn't make any revisions, or Mr. Trotter didn't make any revisions, then it's...
No. There were no revisions at the time.
And what you just gave me from the counselor is just, you're telling him about your application, he just says, oh, just, you better, he was giving you good advice, tell you to get in touch with the Residents Association and the local residents.
So after I came on board and retained by the applicant, I advised my applicant to reach out to the adjoining neighbors, especially to the south, which is the adjoining semi-detached, as well as to the neighbor to the north, which is across the laneway to the north.
Right, and they are, they're okay.
And they're all in support, yes.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, when I had discussions with staff, I supplied them all the information that I had, which is also contained in my report to the committee, which includes the detailed Committee of Adjustment decisions analysis in the close area. I also provided a study area as part of one of the appendices, and have that document available for your review.
So you basically have almost a 2-meter height variance on the side exterior main walls.
Yes.
And your GFA is, your FSI is very high, you're already at 1.48 going to 1.7.
Yes, and just to explain that further, all the variances
Planning is not weighed in, other than emails.
all the variances are related to the extension of the third floor.
Right.
And also just to explain and highlight that the site is an undersized site compared to the other sites that are fronting onto Crawford Street by approximately 30 to 35% less. It has a frontage of 4.7 meters, which is about 2 meters less than the average
What's your point?
frontage. Is that this lot is smaller, therefore the FSI appears
Right, but other
more.
people will say small lot, small house.
Yes, how the footprint of the house does align with the rest of the footprints on Crawford as well.
Because there's that argument, people say, okay, you have a smaller house, you have a smaller lot, you have to have a smaller house. I see it's narrower, I guess, than the other lots?
It's narrower and shorter by 10 meters in length.
Okay.
You don't have any elevation drawings that show the project in context. You have photographs, but you've got a front and a rear elevation, but you don't have any that show how it relates to the attached building?
I believe in the report, I do have that.
I can see a front elevation, but it's just of your building.
So would you like a side section? I have that as well.
I'd just like to know how it looks from the front and the back compared to the house that's attached to it. It looks to me as though, and I'm making a guess, it looks from your drawing A6 that the building at the front is primarily unaltered. And
Yes.
the building is altered at the back by placing a portion of an addition on the third floor at the back of the building.
Yes, it's just to the rear.
Okay, in future, it's helpful, particularly if you're semi or street townhouses, to show us how that relates to the attached property.
I see. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if no one else has any questions on this application, I'm prepared to bring forward a motion of approval. I think that it's a fairly substantial addition for the size of the building, but I don't think it in any way offends the character of the neighborhood. It's maintaining the street frontage, as I understand it. It has some support and only one objection. I think it maintains neighborhood credibility, and I believe it meets the 4 tests for variance approval.
I second the motion.
All in favor? You have your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next application is item number 32-7, Peveril Hill South. It's an application to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition and a rear three-story addition with a terrace on the north side of the third floor. There are 3 variances under the new the bylaw. We have before us 11 photographs of the property, covering letter from Janice Robinson. Previous decision affecting the property, which I'd like you to deal with or tell us about. It was a refusal in January 2019, pretty recent. And we have 9 form letters of support, including, it looks like both adjacent neighbors, 3, 5, 9, 11, 15, 20, 24, Peveril Hill South, and 8 Peveril South and 2 Avenal.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think this is necessarily all that complicated an application, but the history is complicated. And on that basis, this is a case where I think we would benefit from a brief presentation.
I agree.
Yes.
And also the side of the, I see the deck is oversized, and, yeah, just tell us about what happened with the previous application and why you're back here with a fresh application.
So I'm Janice Robinson of Goldberg Group, representing the owners. What I handed up to you, there's 2 more letters of support that were received after the cutoff, so you didn't have them. And then the map showing where they all are.
Okay.
So you know what the proposal is. The owners applied back earlier this year. The architect presented it to a different panel. At the time, the neighbors were in support of the application, and staff had no concerns, just like today.
Yeah.
It was for a higher floor space index. It was 1.01 times the site area. So I was actually at committee for a different application at the time, and they really just looked at it and said they just thought the floor space index was too high for them to approve. So the floor space index has been reduced. It's 0.89 now. These are additions. It's a third-story addition. There's a new third story getting built. There's a 3-story addition at the back, and a second story over the garage. That front terrace, the terrace that's on the 3rd floor, it's towards the front of the house, so it doesn't overlook the backyard. I'm just going to put this.
Can you clarify, you reduced the floor space index. Where was that reduction taken from?
It was just kind of all around.
Little bits here.
Little bits here and there. It just kind of pulled it back at the back. The house itself right now, even before, there's no length variances, there's no height variances. 3rd story is permitted in the bylaw. So the volume of the house in terms of massing.
No big dramatic.
No. The side yard setback, what they're doing is continuing on the ground floor. They're continuing the existing condition, the existing side yard setback. You get to the 2nd floor, it's set in 1.4 meters. You look at the 3rd floor, it's set in even more. So
Terrace, it looks like it's off the master suite.
And it's towards the front of the house.
It's not going to be any big parties. It's near the front, but it's not at the front, so there's no overlook at the
No, it's not overlooking the front, but it's not overlooking the back. And those neighbors on that side supported it last time, and they supported
last
this.
time from, it's one of the little pieces they took off. It went from 15 to 12 square meters. So it's still 3 times what's permitted, but I guess there's no issues with that in terms of objections from the neighbors. Everyone seems to be okay with it. So.
Yeah, and that terrace did get a little bit smaller as well. It was 15
to 12. Okay, committee members, any follow-up questions for Ms. Robinson, or are we ready for a motion?
I'm missing the deck. Where is the deck?
It's off the master suite on the 3rd floor. On the side, like on the sort of roof terrace, 12 square meters. Right?
Okay, got it. And those neighbors that face that roof terrace are the people that supported?
Yes.
Supported first time?
Yes.
Continue to support?
Yep, they went out and got new letters all over again with the new application.
Right.
Can you explain to me, the roof terrace is set in from the edge of the building?
Yes, it is.
So is there some barrier? We had a case this morning that was actually quite well done. They had a barrier, and then they had a planted screen, so they had a double level screening. Is there some screening between the roof terrace and the properties on the, what side is that? On the north.
I'm showing you the picture of it there, the perspective. There isn't a sight line because it's set back from the edge as well.
Well, it's set back from the edge of the roof, and then the wall is set back from the floor.
That's set back, yeah. And then that's towards the front, so you're looking, it's not anywhere close to the back.
An opportunity for people to go here?
No, because that's not part of what's approved.
Okay.
So it has to be cordoned off.
Yeah, but couldn't they just hop over, and what's over there? They could,
Well, it's a flat roof there, but, if you want to have a control on the height, you can put that into if you want to say that it should be 1.5 meters.
you're at 12 meters, which is already, more than what's permitted by 3
Right.
times. But if they were to then use the front part, then there would be more issues of overlook, and then it would be even more oversized.
Well, they wouldn't be in compliance.
Right.
So
It's all based on complaint anyway, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions? or-
Did you just offer to make the screen bigger?
Well, if Mr. Chairman said they could jump over.
I'm just saying.
And it's not high. If you want to say it should be 1.5, they can't jump over
They
then.
could just have a panel there that's removable or something. I'm not,
Or they can get a ladder.
Again, they wouldn't comply. If they use a greater area, they wouldn't comply. And
Anyway, it's off the bedroom, so hopefully they aren't having parties up there, so.
yes.
I never know. Okay, any further questions?
There are no questions. I move that the application be approved.
Okay, I'll second it for that.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was number 32. We'll move on to item number 33, 37 Hatherley Road. This is an application to construct a new two-story single-family detached dwelling. Note, previous decision of committee, 2018, granted variances permitting the construction of a two-story duplex building. We have before us Urban Forestry requesting their condition number 3. We have right-of-way management advising they're okay with the application. We have a previous TLAB decision in order affecting the property and the Committee of Adjustment. That would be with respect to the two-story duplex that was approved. And then we have transportation services. I guess they're okay.
Said they're okay.
Yeah, okay. And this is as well as zoning. Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Fausto Cortez. I'm the agent representing the owner in this matter.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
I don't believe we need a fulsome presentation on this unless committee members feel we do. So I see you were at committee at, I guess that's Etobicoke, York, because.
Correct.
This is Davenport. Why were you in York, Etobicoke, York previously?
No idea.
Me neither. Okay, committee members, you don't feel you need any questions for Mr. Cortez? Okay, we got switched. That was back in 2018. We have your letter. We have a copy of the TLAB report. I guess the neighbor had appealed. You got approved at committee. The neighbor appealed, and then the neighbor.
Well, yeah, originally we had met with them and he agreed.
So now, you have approval to do a duplex, and now they've changed their mind and wish to do a two-story single-family residence, right? Okay. Okay.
The design is completely the same, other than the fact that, 100% the same.
Yeah, okay.
It's no longer a duplex.
Are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bring forward a motion of approval for the application, subject to forestry condition number 3. I think that it's reasonable development. It enhances the community and meets the variance, objectives for variance approval.
You said urban forestry, right?
I did, forestry number 3.
Second the motion.
All in favor? You have your approval.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. Item number 34, 288 St. Clair Avenue East. This is an application to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition. And we have before us 3 form letters of support signed by 286, 290, both sides, and 133 Rose Park Drive, which is probably right behind. So you've done your homework. You got both adjacent, and there's no other communication from anyone, no city staff, no opposed neighbors. It's very clean. Good afternoon. Can we get your name and address?
Yeah, Christopher Walker. I'm the architect and agent at 197 Spadina.
Okay, let's see if committee members require a presentation, or if they just may have some questions for you instead, or ready for a motion. Those are the three choices. Would you like a presentation?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Okay.
If my colleagues don't have any questions, I'd like to move approval of the application. I think it's very straightforward. It's in keeping with the character of the area, and it meets the test for variance approval.
Thank you, Ms. Nipfel.
Second it.
All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you
very much.
Item number 35, 750 Brock Avenue. This is to alter the existing two-story townhouse by constructing a rear two-story addition. 3 variances under the new bylaw, 4 under the old bylaw. We have before us 5 form letters of support signed by area residents, including 748 next door, as well as several addresses on the wall list, 105, 107, 109, and 113. And that is all we have.
I have one more letter that was submitted recently. Richard Penner from 750 Brock here.
Okay, thanks. You want to just put that with the, add it to the file for the record? Thank you. 111 Wallace Avenue. Okay, and I see this is what you, I guess, showed to the neighbors, which is great. You don't just ask them of their consent, you actually show them what you're going to do. Okay.
Thank you.
Again, very straightforward. No neighbors opposed, no city departments with comments or concerns. So are we ready for a motion, or do you have any questions for the applicant?
Richard Penner, 750 Brock Avenue.
It's got a lot of old bylaws. 4 variances under the old bylaw and 3 under the new bylaw.
No one seems concerned.
Any support from people on the other side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 748 Brock. Oh, yeah, and then the other ones, there's no Brock address on the other side.
That's right.
Okay. So, motion? Nope. No communication from anyone.
I've reviewed the materials, and it looks like a very straightforward application. I just want to note as well that you abut the lane, so you don't have a neighbor on the lane side of your property, which is the north side. So, and I believe you have not approval, but your neighbor abutting on the south side is okay with the application. Is that correct? Yes.
It's
So in my...
All the ones behind or on.
Right. In my view, this is a minor variance, so my motion is for approval of the application.
All in favor? You have your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 36, 34 White Pine Avenue. This is an application to alter the existing 1.5-story dwelling by constructing a front second-story addition above the garage, a rear second-story addition, a rear 2-story addition, and north side 2-story addition with a ground floor deck. And the front porch will also be reconstructed. Having said all of that, we only have 2 very minor variances, length of 0.6 of a meter and lot coverage of 0.9 of a meter.
No, 0.9%.
0.9%, exactly. And we have correspondence and support from 32. There is urban forestry too being required.
Correct.
Wow, you're hardly asking for anything here, Mr. Lacasano.
That's correct. Try and make it simple for you.
0.6 of a meter, it's hardly worth coming here in 1%.
Well, the unfortunate part is when we initially put in the survey, the surveyor forgot to put in the shed at the back, which affected our coverage number. So we figured if we're going to be over, we were already over on coverage, we might as well go for the variance.
How can it be any more minor than this? So
Yep.
Can I have a motion?
I agree.
Approval, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval. This is extremely minor.
I second the motion.
It's subject to forestry.
Oh, it's forestry number 2.
Yes.
Forestry, yes.
I second the motion.
Okay, you got your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Okay, item number 37 is 166 HEWARD Avenue. It's an application to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition, a rear 3rd-story addition, and a new detached 2-car garage. On this application, we have Urban Forestry requesting condition number 2, previous decision affecting the property committee, planning rationale prepared by the agent Jeffrey Moot, and Urban Forestry number 2, and that's all we have. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Jeffrey Moot, Principal Moot Architect, agent on behalf of the owner.
Okay.
Could you clarify the change that's been made since you were at committee in May? You were here in May.
168 HEWARD. So we've matched the approval at 168 HEWARD.
Sorry, affecting.
Yeah, so that's for context. It speaks to the footprint
Okay.
and the extension of the second floor. So it's a match to the...
That's the other side of the
Yeah,
center,
that's
right?
right. That's right. So I was here in May, but
Okay, but for somebody
representing,
else.
yes, that's correct.
They should have done it at the same time.
We're,
You would've
we
charged
tried.
us.
We tried. Yeah, that's right.
You have to come here once. Can I get a motion, please?
Fooled me.
Motion?
I move the application be approved.
Yes, Urban Forestry 2.
Subject to,
Number 2.
I don't know.
Number 2, Urban Forestry 2.
Forestry condition number 2.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Have your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 38, 437 Russell Hill Road. It's an application to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a second-story addition above the attached garage on the north side and a shed on the south side. There are 3 variances, and on this application, we have, again, Urban Forestry number 2. It's 3 in a row. Correspondence from Tom Sprague, including a previous decision affecting the property at 442 Russell Hill across the street. And 2 form letters of support signed by 235 Russell Hill and 24 Old Forest Hill. And again, that's all we have on this one.
Yes, good afternoon. My name's Tom Sprague again. Those 2 letters are the immediate neighbors, even though it's on Old Forest Hill
Right,
Road.
yeah.
So both the neighbors are supportive of
Yeah,
what's
both
being
adjacent.
done on both sides, and
Big lot, relatively small increase going from
modest for many of the homes in the area.
0.49. I don't know what you're at now, or are you under 0.35 or over?
No, it's still over, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But dramatically less than a lot of the homes in the
Can I
area.
get a motion, please?
I move the application be approved. I don't think there's
Urban
any
Forestry too
conditions.
again.
Oh, Urban Forestry too.
It's 3 in a row. All in favor?
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Okay, item number 39, 203 Holborne Avenue. It's an application to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a second-story additions and front and rear second-story balconies. 2 variances under the new bylaw, 1 under the old bylaw. We have oversized balconies. We have Urban Forestry requesting condition number 1, and that's all we have. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name's Trevor Keir. I'm the agent for the owners.
Okay, why are these balconies so oversized? And what rooms are they off?
They're off of a front and back bedroom on the second floor.
Okay.
It's essentially a 2 single-parent family.
Okay.
And they each have their own bedrooms. They wanted their own private space.
Right.
The front balcony turned into an architectural device to try to bring some symmetry to the odd location of windows as they're going to end up.
And is there any screening proposed on either the front or back decks?
There, I've shown so far.
I don't see committee planning asking for it.
No, I haven't shown any of that yet. It hasn't really, the design never got that far. It's just shown as a railing to this point.
Screening or in the back one, or?
I do have 2 letters of support from the neighbor, immediate neighbor and the neighbor across the street.
You want to pass those forward?
Oh.
Or just hand them to staff and we can just read them into the...
Sure. And I also have 10 photos of other houses in the immediate neighborhood with oversized front balconies.
And the balconies, we're talking about oversized, but they're not big, deep things. They're long. That's right.
Uh-huh, okay. So they meet
They're
with...
similar to the vernacular you have on the beach. There's a kind of character.
They sort of
that's
fit
the
in
beach.
with, based on the configuration, because otherwise it would look be more odd if it was shorter.
It's like that.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
Want to look at these? Okay. Yeah. Okay, with the support letters from 205 Holborne next door and 199 Holborne.
It's right across the street.
Okay.
The only question I have is, have you had consultation discussion with the people that are right behind you, who would be the only ones, in my view, that would be potentially affected by the second floor balcony off the back. I don't know that they would, but
We haven't, they're
at
actually so
150
far away,
marker.
they're so far away you can't see. There's a long backyard, then there's
Lots of
a
vegetation.
large carport, then there's a laneway,
Yeah.
and then their backyard, and they're quite far away. There's lots of trees in between.
Fair enough.
Okay, ready for a motion? Remember, we have Urban Forestry 1.
Yes. Move the application be approved, subject to Urban Forestry 1 condition.
Second for that?
I would second that.
All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you tell me what their urban forestry issue is?
It's basically it's an advisory. It's not a, I can get it for you.
Permit to injure a tree or, well. Okay, we'll move on to item number 40. 435 Mortimer. 435 Mortimer. This is an application to alter existing two-story detached dwelling by reconstructing the rear ground floor addition and adding a second-story balcony, and to legalize and maintain the basement secondary street constructed without authorization. 4 variances under the new bylaw, 4 under the old bylaw. And on this application, we have correspondence from right-of-way management with a condition to restore the curb cut, et cetera, and transportation services. What do they say?
Restore the
Yeah, they have no
parking
objection to
soft-
the zero parking.
Restore the parking pad.
Yeah, restore to soft landscaping. Sir, have you seen the memo?
Yeah, in fact, I believe you should also have a copy of a response to transportation in the form of a sketch that is indicated soft landscaping in the front yard. The transportation report was rendered on July
Photograph as
25th.
well, right?
Yeah, we didn't see the report until the 25th of July.
It doesn't say, it just says yard. It doesn't indicate, it shows hatching. The intent is that that's all soft landscaping?
Yeah, well, we didn't, in the time that we had to respond, we've indicated that the owner is fine with the condition that the front yard be rendered to soft landscaping, and they've asked to solicit a permit for the removal of the bricks and the addition of landscape in the front yard. So I believe it's a condition with which the owners are actually okay with. So I sent a sketch yesterday just to see if that's what they wanted, because there is an existing right-of-way.
You're Mr. Boone?
I am.
This is the sketch?
That's it, yes. Yeah. So I sent that just to inquire about what the expectations were, because there is a right-of-way, so I don't believe we're supposed to get rid of the hard surface there for the benefit of the adjacent owner, should they want to use this. It's curious, though, because there's only 7 feet between houses. There never was the ability to park behind these houses. It's not a good idea to do so. So I'm wondering if it might be heavy-handed to remove what is already a condition that people use. Like this is what you might call the de facto condition on the road. Technically, you're not allowed to park there, but people do. For clarity, the subject property is with the gray car on the left, with the front gray window. So what transportation has asked us to do is take out the brick in the front yard, save for a 1.5 meter path.
Yeah, but they're getting a variance for 0 parking spaces. So you can't have a variance and front yard parking.
Here's a perfect example. If that car is gone and you can park a car up to the curb.
Yeah, but you can't get in the right-of-way. Nobody can get into the back of these
That's a right of-
houses.
oh, so that's-
So is
It's a
your-
right-of-way, yeah.
I'm trying to understand your position. Your drawing indicates that you're proposing where the gray car is, you put grass.
Save for a 1.5 meter path, correct.
And now what are you saying? You think it's,
Well, my sense is, and it's just a comment, where the owner is okay with doing this, but there's nothing happening on the front. So it's a condition that exists in a de facto kind of manner where people just pull up and they park this way. It's not, Mortimer Avenue is a bit of a thoroughfare, so parking on the side of the road
do
is
you
somewhat
not need a
difficult.
bylaw amendment, though, if that was to be maintained as a parking space?
No, I appreciate that, but, you know, with a basement suite and a secondary suite, it does provide some conveniences to be able to park and remove groceries. We're not
secondary
opposing
suite-
it.
The secondary suite is not legal. He proceeded with that without approval, right?
The secondary suite exists, that's correct.
But it's not legal.
That's
didn't get
correct.
approval.
It exists as of right under the zoning bylaw, so we need to follow through with permit procedures to render that for what it is.
Anyway,
If
that's
it,
the
hold on,
recommend-
if it exists as of right, then you wouldn't need a variance. It indicates here that part of the reason that we're here is to legalize and maintain a basement secondary suite constructed without authorization, so that.
I think that's the transportation report. I'm not,
Well, that's the
That's
purpose
planning.
of this application.
there's no variance for the basement suite. There's no list of variances. There's no variance indicated for, that was a note that's on the transportation report. I've read it. I think what they're doing is just describing the condition of the work that we're
But I think
dealing
if
with.
we're not,
The purpose of the application says to legalize the secondary suite constructed without other, that wouldn't be transportation. The purpose is drafted by planning, by planners on the zoning review, but by committee of adjustment, but you're not, it couldn't possibly be transportation.
Correct.
You're legalizing your basement suite, and we're gonna do it, so.
Correct.
Stop saying it's legal and as of right. They're saying.
Oh, no, I don't mean to say, not at all. It's just that it is permitted under the auspices of the bylaw. It does exist as a basement suite.
Well,
No
but
one-
you didn't get a building permit probably for it, right? Your client?
No, it existed, in fact, when they bought the house. So once
Well, they
we-
bought it from, built it without a permit.
Correct,
Whatever it is, you're here to rectify that, so.
correct.
Okay, and in terms of the, are we discussing here whether we're going to agree with the transportation recommendation? I agree that I would.
Yeah, the owner is fine with doing that.
Yes, well, that's what I think they have to do. Yes, yeah,
by putting landscaping in there.
right.
Yeah.
And restoring the curb cut. We have one, that would be a second one. They'd be.
It's not appealable. In the report, it's not appealable.
Right.
Yeah, so it's,
Okay. We ready for a motion?
Okay, I'm prepared to bring a motion forward for approval of the application. In my view, this does meet the four tests, and it's going to be subject to the conditions set out in the Transportation Services memo, that the softscape be restored and the curb cut be restored.
Thank you, Ms. Valentini. Seconder for the motion.
Do we need anything in the motion about legalizing and maintaining the basement suite? No.
It's in the purpose of the application, so.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Don.
I don't think the curb cut is taken out, though, if I may. I don't think the curb cut is being removed. That was what I sent to transport. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, because there is a curb cut there already. The right-of-way
So
entrance.
removing the hardscape, putting softscape, and then restoring part of the curb cut. Yes.
I don't think anything happens to the curb cut. It exists. It's right there at the entry to the right-of-way. So,
Is that not a part of the right-of-way condition?
no, yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah. And then so everything south of that is our new landscape. Everything.
Looks like it's crumbling anyway. They should just, doesn't look in very good shape, the sidewalk.
It's being ripped up as we speak, actually.
Okay, good.
There's a crew there today.
So we had a seconder for your motion, Lisa? Did someone?
Yeah, I second.
Okay, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Item number 41, 95 Dunkirk Road. This is an application to construct a rear detached garage. There's 3 variances. I have tick marks on all of them, whatever that means. And on this application, we have nothing whatsoever, a previous decision affecting the property. No communication from neighbors, no communication from city staff, even urban forestry hasn't weighed in. Okay, committee members, can we get your name and address?
Mel Rosenblatt, I'm the agent for the owners at 95 Dunkirk. I live at 53 Neptune Drive.
Thank you. Okay, so
I have one question. Most of the drawings which I surveyed show a single-car garage, and it gets a bit confusing. You're proposing a double-car garage that extends from lot line to lot line, is that correct?
We're proposing 6.7 by 6.7. In 2016, there was already an approval for a garage of 3.96 by 6.10, and we are asking for the minor variance to fill in the back area with a wider garage.
Yeah, and so it'll be a double-car garage.
It'll be a double car,
Also the
yeah.
width of the property, fine, thank you.
Yeah, because you were here in January 2016.
Yes.
Or you weren't, Mr.
I wasn't here, but...
Previous owner also, different owner, different agent.
Right, right.
You ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, unless anyone has questions, I'd like to move approval of this application. I think it's very minor and clearly meets the test for variance approval.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second the motion.
All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, fine.
Next application is item number 42, 71 Lee Avenue. It's to obtain consent to sever the property into two residential dwelling lots. On Part 1, the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling will be altered by constructing a rear ground floor addition with a deck, as described in the associated minor variance application. And the conveyed lot, Part 2, will be a new 3-story detached dwelling will be constructed with a front parking pad as described in the attached minor variance application. So we got a severance and 2 variances. The lot frontages are 7.62. We have on this application urban forestry number 3. That's a different one. There's requesting 2 trees to be planted with respect to the consent. And there are no conditions for the variances. We have your typical engineering and construction services, conditions of approval for severances, parking permits and enforcement parking, and email correspondence from the planner. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. I'm James McDonald, just the agent for the owner.
Okay, so it's interesting, this is like a lot that you're applying to severance, and the building on the lot is on one side. It's not in the middle, and they're going to take it down and build 2. They're going to keep one, put on a deck or something, and ground floor addition and a deck, and then build one new one on the other side. So how did that come apart? Did you have a lot on the beach just as, or like a house skewed on a lot like that?
Well, the owner, when they bought it so many years ago, I believe bought it, I'd have to ask the owner's daughter, but I'm not sure. I think it's just a case of him buying the lot with, with the intent of maybe doing something in the future.
There's clarification of this. There's drawings of a house in our agendas. I'm assuming it's the existing house, but I'm not 100% sure. Is there?
The new one is.
Well, no.
Oh, yeah, we just got this.
Are they new?
I got 2 copies on my
Oh.
thing, so maybe I didn't get a copy. I just assumed-
So this is the new house?
That's the existing house. We
Okay,
have-
then
We were missing the
the
existing
house
house.
that's on A12, is that new? You're drawing A12.
Basically, the existing house is here, and there's a one-story.
Actually, you want to bring that a little bit closer? Typically, that's not going to fit on the overhead, and it's such a nice
So this,
board, we'd like to see it.
So this is the existing house.
And it's being retained?
It's being retained. and
Okay, we don't have drawings of that in our.
Well, now you do.
just got
We
them.
just got
That's
it.
what we just got. And the ones that we have drawings of are
It's the new
this
house.
one. This is the new one.
Yes.
Like that one, right?
Yes.
And There's no conditions related to that. Can I see, can you see the centerfold? What's in the middle there?
Just the opening?
Uh-huh.
These are just the plans.
I see, okay, so we saw that. I thought you were going to have a streetscape or something, but you have the streetscape there.
Yeah, this is the streetscape.
Okay.
And then just the rear streetscape.
Okay. It's like the old days when Mr. Brown would bring his, Okay.
The one on the retaining wall, that's the new.
Very good. Okay, so there's no conditions related to the consents because you have an existing house with just adding a ground floor addition and a deck, and then the new house seems to be.
Can I see the existing one again? Because I
Because I kept the last one.
I have not seen the elevations of the existing house.
I think that's it.
Yeah. That's a nicer version. Yeah, okay.
Is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so.
It has like an enclosed, okay.
And the plans are down below, the shaded dark of the existing.
I see. So
And it's just the one-story addition at the back.
Okay, and no comments
Very
from.
nice. Okay, thank you.
I see Mr. Victor Rosa was involved. So did anyone consult with it? Because we don't have one letter from any neighbor for or against.
Undersized, it's like.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Do you want this?
That's okay.
Because I got my own.
Okay, that's good. You were .87, which is sort of modest. Okay. Okay, so I guess you did your homework. Anyone ready for a motion? I guess first on the severance. We need 3 motions.
I move that
Severance.
we consent to sever the property into 2 residential dwelling lots.
Subject to the normal conditions, urban forestry condition, 3.
Urban forestry number 3, they want 2 trees planted, and staff 1 condition, and engineering 3 conditions.
Okay, seconder for Mr. Grancy's motion on the consent to sever.
I'd second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, now on the applicate part 42B, the new 3-story house with a front yard parking pad. Do I have a motion on that?
This is a new, and
There's no conditions on these. Correct? I thought you said. Oh, there is? I thought you said in the briefing. Okay.
Variance number 1 and 2.
I don't see that. Okay, oh, it's. Okay. Yep, okay. So Mr. Granstein is still your, oh, I see it here, okay.
I move that this application be approved, subject to the planning condition.
Variance 1 and 2. limited to
Variances
the
1 and
proposed
2.
Substantially in accordance with the dimensions shown in drawings A1, A14, A15, A12, A13.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, and then the third application, 43C, the retained lot.
So I move that application be approved as well. I don't know that
There's no
there's any
conditions on that.
conditions that we haven't already imposed.
Yeah, correct. No condition on that one. Seconded for that one. Also, all in favor? So you got all 3. Severance and 2 variance applications. Yeah, do this, yeah, I think.
Who seconded?
Lisa. I did. Donald moved both and Lisa seconded them.
Great. Okay, thank you, sir. You have your approval. Item number 4355 Lakeshore Boulevard East. It's an application to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 parcels for redevelopment as residential towers and as office buildings and to create various easements and rights-of-way. And we have covering letter from Adam Brown. We have correspondence from Community Planning, HPS, Heritage Preservation. They want to maintain the heritage numbering system or something. We have staff reports from Development Engineering, and that's what we have. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Graham Frank. I'm a planner with Adam Brown's office, and I'm here today on behalf of our client, Menkes Developments, with regard to a simple severance for their property at 55 Lakeshore Boulevard. So this is a technical severance to separate commercial from residential components, along with creating associated cross easements. And it's very simple, and it's for the purpose of facilitating financing. We support the conditions that are before you today, and I'm here with a presentation that I can give you, or I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So you've seen all the memorandums with the conditions, revised numbering, and engineering construction has no objections. Okay, any questions for Mr. Frank? Or are we ready for a motion? The RCA is okay. Yes.
Okay. I'm prepared to bring a motion forward for approval of the application for the consent, subject to the conditions set out in the Heritage Preservation Services memo and the standard consent conditions.
All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 44, which is our last application of the afternoon, and it still is afternoon. To obtain consent to sever the property into 2 lots and create easements. This was previously approved in a previous consent decision, but the decision lapsed as the conditions were not fulfilled within the required time frame. And we have on this application covering letter from Jason Park.
Mr. Chair, my name is...
You're not Jason Park?
I am not Mr. Jason Park. I am his...
We have your urban forestry conditions 1 and 3. I can't understand why. We have a planning conditions, and we have staff reports from urban forestry and community planning, and a previous decision affecting the property, and an OMB decision. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Adrian Frank. I'm one of Jason Park's partners, counsel for the applicant, or pardon me, for the registered site owner.
The guy with Mr. Brown's office was also Frank. So we got
Yes, I am the second Mr. Frank.
Okay.
As it happens, this is the neighboring site.
The good-looking one.
So, as you indicated, this is an application returning that looks very much like what this committee considered last year. So I can provide an overview and a presentation if you wish, but...
You're okay with the recommendation from staff providing confirmation of the form of reciprocal consent easement satisfactory to chief planner?
We are indeed.
Condition of approval. I think that's the only condition?
Forestry,
Oh, and forestry, as I mentioned, which I can't.
1 and 3.
It isn't clear to us either.
Is there any trees down there?
But you're agreeing to it.
Okay.
If it is within the committee's jurisdiction to consider or reconsider that condition, we would invite the committee to do so, but we otherwise have no comment.
Well, we don't know why it's there, so I think we should approve it, and you deal with forestry.
I'm
Get them to
assuming that
agree to-
there's a landscape plan of some sort for the property. I mean, they usually will impose that a tree be maintained if you're doing construction, and then often with consents, if there are no trees, they'll ask that you pay for trees to be planted at some point in time.
If I may confer momentarily with the site owner.
But if it's already...
Aren't these, typically, wouldn't you consent to this, or no? No. This does go to you, okay.
There are 2 aspects of the site that warrant mention. The first is that this is a multi-phase development. What is being requested here is a consent to sever the first phase of the proposal. In subsequent phases, there is a tree plan, a landscaping plan that involves certain conditions involving urban forestry. At this stage of the development, the trees are not implicated, which is why it isn't entirely clear why conditions would be required for this phase.
This phase, yeah, this is the consent to sever. Okay.
And on that basis, I would note that the proposal that came before you last year was approved without this condition. And if I'm not mistaken, the staff member responsible for reviewing this is not available due to summer vacation, which is why it hasn't been removed in this case.
Does the condition pose a hardship for you, or just it's confusing?
One of the issues is that we have not seen the wording of the condition. It was not posted to the public site.
It's the standard conditions. I think it's an abundance of caution. We don't want to make a mistake. It's probably easier we just, if they've asked for it and people aren't around, we approve. You get them to. Obviously, it seems to be something that's at a later stage of development when you're doing a site plan, or possibly.
So
it really is
condition
relevant at this
number-
stage.
Yeah, urban forestry
It really doesn't seem.
urban forestry condition number 1 is submission of a complete application for permit to injure or remove a tree, but you're not doing any construction.
No, this is a technical consent for the purposes of financing.
And then the other one is where there's no existing tree, the owner shall provide payment in lieu of planting one. But I think.
One tree on this.
Yeah.
I think it's not appropriate for this stage of what we're coming here to do today, just sever the property for create 2 lots for future development. I think they can impose that. I'm sure they'll have plenty of opportunities to impose something else at a later date. I don't know what my
I would, just as the applicant, I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, one of my colleagues will make a motion. We'll see if they include it or not. I agree with you. When I was reading it, I said, what is this? I think we sort of all did. And they will have many other kicks at the can. I take you're going through site plan and.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And this has been an involved and lengthy process. Staff are intimately familiar with the application and its details and conditions.
Okay. Anyone ready for our last motion of the afternoon?
So if we approve this, are you going to be back next year because the time elapsed, or are you going to have enough time?
I welcome that question. In the previous application, a number of the conditions you would note are related to LPAT proceedings, which involved not just agreements between the applicant, the registered site owner, and the city, but also neighboring site owners. It takes a great deal of time to get a number of different parties on the same page when it comes to complex legal agreements. For better or worse, there are a lot of lawyers involved. Unfortunately, that process could not unfold quickly enough in the previous application. Here, all of that is done.
Okay. So the forestry conditions don't relate to the paper that's going to be generated to do the mortgage, right?
No, that is correct.
Okay. All right, so I move that the application be approved, subject to the planning condition.
I second the motion.
All in favor? There you have your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Time's death.
Yeah, pretty early when we caught up. We caught up. Luckily, we had no contested applications.
Lucky she
for
takes
the
minutes
time
as fast
slots.
as she
Yeah.
does.
She what?
Time slots, yeah.
It's lucky she takes minutes as fast as she does.